Part 23. Martial Arts, Become Invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 221. The tattooed man snorted coldly, and the dozen boys behind him suddenly showed fierce and ferocious expressions. The meaning is obvious. If you don't pay, you can't open a store here. The shopkeeper smiled bitterly and said 30% is really too much. I can't make the decision. The tattooed man said, then let the person who can make the decision come. The one who can decide is here. Suddenly a voice sounded. Both the shopkeeper and the tattooed man followed the sound and saw Xiaowaji walking forward slowly. Seeing Xiaowaji, the shopkeeper reacted and was pleasantly surprised. Just now he was frightened by these gangsters from the Yulong gang. When I arrived, I almost forgot that he was also covered by someone. Su's jewelry store is not an ordinary jewelry store, and there is the great god Xiaowaji standing behind it. Can you decide? It's better to call your father. The tattooed man looked sideways at Xiaowaji, full of contempt. In his eyes, Xiaowaji was just a young boy, a pretty boy with no strength. He could hit such a pretty boy 10 times with one slap. In his opinion, Xiaowaji is not the owner of this store, but at most the owner's son. It has to be said that Xiaowaji's appearance is too confusing. If he does not take the initiative to release his aura and pressure, in the eyes of outsiders, there was no threat at all. Xiaowaji found a chair and sat down, crossed his legs, and said calmly, I was in a good mood today, but you guys were too noisy and disturbed my rare good mood. So. Xiaowaji didn't say anything else, he just raised his hand and 4 black shadows suddenly flashed behind him. Boom. 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 With a muffled sound, the tattooed man and a dozen of his men were all beaten to the ground. The tattooed man was trampled under his feet and several of his teeth flew off. The one who took action was not Xiaowaji, but the martial arts guard invited by 03 Xiaowaji. These guards are all innate masters, more than enough to deal with these gangsters. Ah! How dare you hit me? The tattooed man was stepped on by an innate martial artist, but he was still making noises and yelling, you're done, you're dead. Do you know how powerful our fish dragon gang is? If you dare to offend our Yulong gang, no one can save you. The tattooed man's eyes were fierce and his face was ferocious. A pair of eyes were staring at Xiaowaji, full of hatred. Xiaowaji was very familiar with this look. It was a murderous look. Obviously, this tattooed man had killed someone before. There is definitely a life in his hands. Think about it, this tattooed man looks like the leader of the Yulong gang. To be the leader, he must have killed people and made meritorious deeds. Xiaowaji said expressionlessly, I also want to know, how powerful is the fish dragon gang? Can it kill me? Why don't you tell me, who is the leader of your Yulong gang? And who is the backend of your Yulong gang? It also opened my eyes. Several of Xiaowaji's innate bodyguards all looked at the gangsters at their feet with joking faces, and the owner of the jewelry store also looked proud. With Xiaowaji's background, these gangsters are really out of their minds. As a new member of the imperial court, Xiaowaji, you can't just walk sideways in Jinling City. No one dares to offend, but there are only a few people who can't afford to offend. Even if a mere Yulong gang has a big background, they don't dare to compete with Xiaowaji. You can be proud of yourself now. When my boss comes, you will know how powerful I am. The tattooed man was not afraid at all when he was trampled under his feet. Instead, he threatened him. Before he finished speaking, the innate martial artist stepped hard on his feet and stepped on him hard. There was only a crisp click, and the tattooed man immediately let out a miserable cry. Yelling, blood spurted from the mouth and nose. With the strength of the innate martial artist, he could easily crush a person's head with one kick. That is, in the jewelry store now, Xiao Wuji did not want to dirty the ground here, so he asked the innate martial artist to be merciful. Otherwise, this would be so arrogant the guy was already dead. Xiao Wuji looked at the dozen or so gangsters behind him and said, "Which of you is the fastest? Go back to the Yulong gang immediately to report the news and ask your boss to come to me. Oh no, come to kill me. Tell your boss, if he doesn't come to kill me, I will definitely kill him and let him think about it carefully." A gangster ran the fastest. As soon as Xiao Wuji finished speaking, he ran away and disappeared. At this time, Su Weiner came over and asked nervously, "Xiao Lang, is it really okay? Nothing will happen, right?" Xiao Wuji patted Su Weiner's little hand and comforted, "It's okay, it's just a gang that collects protection money and charges it on us. If I don't teach them a lesson, they'll think I'm afraid of him. Besides, these gangsters have done a lot of evil and should have been punished long ago. If you are idle, you should be idle. Just think of it as eliminating harm for the people." Always fighting against behemoths like the demon sect made Xiao Wuji unable to experience the pleasure of overpowering others with power. The fish dragon gang hit the muzzle of the gun just in time. Xiao Wuji stared at the tattooed man with cold eyes, letting him he couldn't help but shudder. Xiao Wuji now was completely different from before. The aura and pressure on his body and the aura of the superior had completely burst out, almost making him unable to breathe. The tattooed man was scared. He was in Yulong. "I have been around for several years and have learned a little bit about the ability to observe people's emotions. I know that people with this kind of aura must not be ordinary people. Damn it, I won't offend anyone I shouldn't offend, right?" The tattooed man secretly regretted that he was too impulsive and came to collect protection money without investigating the background of Su's jewelry store. Yangping Fang, a large mansion with 4 entrances. Many burly men were practicing martial arts, making out there were shouts of hum and ha-ha. Even though it was already cold winter, these people were still wearing very thin clothes. As they shouted, white mist came out of their mouths, and the skin on their bodies was red, with beads of sweat flowing out. This is the home base of the Fish Dragon Gang. Although the Fish Dragon Gang is a gang, it is also a martial arts school. It is precisely because there are so many martial arts masters in the Yulong Gang that the Yulong Gang has the courage to bully the people and collect protection fees from businesses. In the lobby, there was a burly middle-aged man in his 40s, a general in his 50s, sitting at the main seat. He was holding a wine glass in his left hand and a roasted lamb leg in his right hand. He was drinking heavily and eating meat. This person is the leader of the Yulong Gang, Hu Jiang. Sitting next to Hu Jiang was a beautiful woman, respectfully pouring wine for Hu Jiang. Occasionally, he would use the handkerchief to wipe away the fleshy foam and grease stars from the corners of Hu Jiang's mouth. At this moment, a panicked shout suddenly came from outside the lobby, and a gangster ran in a panic. "Gang leader, something bad has happened." The third leader went to collect money from members and was detained. "What did you say?" Hu Jiang's expression changed, and he immediately started to slap the case. "Which bastard dares to detain someone from my Yulong Gang? Do you want to die?" The gangster said in a panic, "It's a store called Su's Jewelry Store." The person who detained the third leader said to ask the gang leader to see him immediately, otherwise. "How else?" "Otherwise, he will come and kill the gang leader." Arrogant. Hu Jiang smashed the table with his palm, and said with a gloomy face, "A mere shop owner actually dared to threaten me, Hu Jiang, and rebelled against him. I haven't made a move for a while, and it seems I was underestimated." Hu Jiang laughed evilly twice and shouted coldly, "Take someone with you and go with me. I want to see how that arrogant bastard kills me." Hu Jiang and his men rushed to Su's jewelry store aggressively, and at a glance he saw Xiao Wuji sitting in front of the jewelry store. Xiao Wuji crossed his legs and chewed melon seeds. He looked as arrogant as possible. What does it mean to be arrogant? This is called being arrogant. At Xiao Wuji's feet, there were more than a dozen men lying around, all from his Yulong gang. Especially the so-called third boss, a big man with tattoos, who had been knocked unconscious and his face was covered with blood. Many civilians gathered in front of the jewelry store, and they all came to watch the fun. Everyone was talking about it. Is this a member of the Yulong gang? That's right. The one with the blood on his face is the third leader of the Yulong gang. Is his surname Lai or Pai Lai? I can't remember clearly, but it's definitely him. I have seen that face of his, and I will never forget it in my life. It seems that the people from the Yulong gang came to collect protection fees again, but this boss didn't pay them. This jewelry store owner is so brave. He actually dares to fight someone from the Yulong gang. Is 643 going to die? He beat up someone from the Fish Dragon gang, and the Fish Dragon gang would never let him go. Alas, things are getting serious now. You should give money. As long as you give money, the Yulong gang will not come to make trouble. Although I lost my money, my life is safe at least. Now the Yulong gang has been greatly offended, and their lives may be in danger. The people around him said and shook their heads, feeling sorry for Xiao Wuji. They are all old people on this street, and they all know how powerful the Yulong gang is, and they must not be offended. I don't think so. A man in the crowd, dressed in luxurious clothes, said, I think the Fish Dragon gang is going to be finished this time. How can it be? The people around him didn't believe it. The Fish Dragon gang has been here for 7 or 8 years. Who dares to provoke them? I heard that the Yulong gang is backed by people from the government. How could it be possible to just say it all? That is, if you don't understand, don't talk nonsense. The nobleman smiled and said nothing and did not argue with the people. The truth is often in the hands of a few people. This truth has never changed since ancient times. Hu Jiang came with people and saw Xiao Wuji's fearless look, and the anger in his heart suddenly burst out. You are an arrogant bastard. Not only did the person who beat me not run away, he actually waited for me to come to your door without any fear. He didn't take me, Hu Jiang, seriously at all. Hu Jiang was secretly resentful in his heart. He was so angry that he gritted his teeth and almost shattered his back molars. He immediately led others to rush forward. Hey, it's you. Just when Hu Jiang was about to say harsh words, Xiao Wuji raised his hand slightly, and a melon seed flew out and hit him in the head. With a bang, Hu Jiang was knocked out, blood spurted from his forehead, he fell heavily to the ground, and let out a shrill scream. A blood hole appeared on Hu Jiang's forehead, dripping with blood. But fortunately, Xiao Wuji was merciful. The blood hole only hurt the flesh and not the skull, so Hu Jiang is still alive. At the same time that Xiao Wuji took action, his innate martial arts master also took action at the same time. I heard a few muffled bangs, 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 and then a few screams. All the people Hu Jiang brought fell to the ground. Looking at his men who were completely defeated, Hu Jiang was dumbfounded. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 222. Looking at his men who were completely defeated, Hu Jiang was dumbfounded. When he looked at Xiao Wuji again, his eyes were no longer arrogant, but only filled with fear and uneasiness. Hu Jiang shivered, feeling a cold air running up from his heels to Tianling Gai, making his scalp numb. The people watching around were also dumbfounded. They saw the Yulong gang men rushing towards them and thought the jewelry store owner was going to be beaten to death. Unexpectedly, Hu Jiang was beaten to the ground before he even finished speaking. The martial arts masters of the Yulong gang who used to do evil and oppress the people have all turned into soft-footed shrimps at this moment. They didn't even see it clearly, and all the members of the Yulong gang were useless. Look, I'm just saying that the people of the Yulong gang are doomed. The gorgeous man smiled slightly, showing his confidence. The people around him were speechless. If it was a rumor, they would definitely not believe it. But now that they saw it with their own eyes, they had no choice but to believe it. It seems that the Ichthyosaurus gang has hit the wall this time. Great, the Ichthyosaurus gang is about to end. As long as the Ichthyosaur gang is eradicated, our life will be easy. The people around looked at Wuxia and his party, with hatred flashing in their eyes. Especially some small traders, they all hated the Yulong gang. They didn't make much money on weekdays, and they had to endure the Yulong gang. Exploited, life is even more difficult. Day and night, they hope that someone can eradicate the cancer of the Yulong gang, and now they finally see hope. Wuxia also understands at this moment that he has offended a big shot that he cannot offend. Wuxia was filled with regret now, so regretful that he felt heartbroken and wanted to kill the third master. If it weren't for that idiot, how could he have ended up in this situation? Without saying a word, Wuxia immediately knelt down on the ground, kowtowed and begged for mercy. "My hero, have mercy on me." The hero has mercy, the villain will never dare to do it again. The villain is too blind to recognize Mount Tai today. It offends the hero. It's the villain's fault. The villain is willing to compensate the hero for all his losses, and only asks the hero to spare the villain's life. Looking at Wuxia's skillful posture of kneeling down to beg for mercy, Xiao Wuji smiled in surprise, and smiled at the guard next to him, looking at how skillful he is, cutting the strips smoothly. He must be kneeling down to beg for mercy. "I've practiced it many times." The guard smiled in agreement. "Young master is right." Another guard said, "The person who can kneel down and beg for mercy so skillfully is definitely a talent." Of course Wuxia knew that they were mocking him, but he didn't dare to get angry. He only dared to smile and kowtow to beg for mercy. Xiao Wuji didn't dare to stop until Xiao Wuji shouted to stop. The people around him saw the leader of the Yulong gang kneeling on his knees, kowtowing and crying bitterly. They were all relieved of their hatred. It turned out that they usually thought that the leader of the Yulong gang, who was aloof, was just a dog that was greedy for life and afraid of death. At this moment, the people around him were indifferent to the fear of Wuxia. Xiao Wuji looked at Wuxia, raised his fingers and said, "Stop knocking, come over and have a chat." "Yes, yes, the villain is coming." Wuxia crawled up to Xiao Wuji, knelt down and said with a flattering smile, "My hero, please forgive me. If you have anything to say, please speak. As long as the villain can do it, the villain will definitely do it." Xiao Wuji said, "As long as you answer my questions, I won't kill you." "Yes, yes, please ask me, the villain. The villain must tell you everything he knows." Wuxia was overjoyed when he heard that he could survive. Xiao Wuji asked, "Who is your backer?" "This." Wuxia was shocked and hesitated. He didn't dare to answer this question. He dared to dominate here because he had a backer. Once the identity of the backer was revealed, the backer would never let him go. When the time comes, he is still dead. Wuxia smiled bitterly and said, "My hero, why do you ask this?" "Pa." The innate guard beside Xiao Wuji immediately slapped Wuxia on the face, knocking his face crooked and causing several teeth to fly out. "You can answer whatever the young master asks. You are not qualified to ask questions. If you dare to talk nonsense again, I will wring your neck directly." The innate guard looked fierce and full of murderous intent, which scared Wuxia to the point of trembling with fear. "How?" "Prefer not to say. It seems you want to die." Xiao Wuji's voice gradually became colder, and a pair of cold eyes stared at Wuxia, which immediately made him suffocate, and Wuji's fear surged in his heart. The sense of oppression displayed by Xiao Wuji at this moment was much stronger than that of his backer. Head of the criminal department. How dare a mere head of the criminal department have such courage? Dare to support a gang in Jinling City? Oppressing the people. Xiao Wuji had a look of disdain on his face. When Wuxia saw Xiao Wuji's reaction, he felt even more desperate. Even the head of the criminal department did not take him seriously. which shows that Xiao Wuji's background is bigger than he imagined. Xiao Wuji not only himself with outstanding military force and possibly an official background, he is definitely above the heads of the criminal department. Okay, you are just a small character, and you don't know many secrets even if you think about it. Xiao Wuji looked at Hu Jiang with an expressionless face, which made Hu Jiang tremble in his heart. Let's go to Jin Yiwei prison to discuss your matter. Jin Yiwei ordered him to prison. Hu Jiang's eyes widened, full of fear. The blood in his whole body almost froze at this moment. Jin Yiwei's prison was the most terrifying place in the world. Longton and Tiger's Den are not enough to describe the horror of that place. Even if a master of martial arts entered even in prison, he has to shed a layer of his skin, and life is worse than death, let alone him. Hu Jiang is extremely desperate. He is just a small leader of the Yulong gang. On weekdays, he only dares to bully ordinary people and small businessmen. How can he do that? Is it the Jin Yiwei's turn to deal with him? Hu Jiang still wanted to beg for mercy, but he saw that the people suddenly branched out, and a group of Jin Yiwei wearing Fiyu uniforms and embroidered spring knives came over. It was Shui Hua and Song Liman's team. Shui Hua and Song Liman led people to Xiao Wuji, bowed respectfully and saluted, "I see you, Lord Qinhu." As soon as these words came out, Hu Jiang was paralyzed with fear, and his crotch became completely wet. The people around him also took a deep breath. 1,000 households. This boss is actually Jin Yiwei Qinhu. I really can't tell. He is still so young. Do not judge a book by its cover. The Fish Dragon gang really hit the wall this time. The protection money was collected from Jin Yiwei Qinhu. If he didn't die, who would die? Xiao Wuji glanced at Hu Jiang calmly and said calmly, "This person is the leader of the Yulong gang. The Yulong gang is running rampant in the countryside here, extorting money and killing people. His crime is unpardonable. He will be immediately taken to Jin Yiwei prison. Strictly interrogate. He has confessed that his backer is Li Qiun, the head of the criminal department, but I feel that there is a bigger backer behind Li Qiun. Li Qiun is not so bold. You immediately take people to arrest Li Qiun and take him to prison for interrogation. You must find out who is behind Li Qiun. Of course, we cannot let go of the Ichthyosaur gang's lair, and we must kill them all in one fell swoop." "Yes, I obey." Shui Hua, Song Liman, and others immediately bowed and obeyed the order. Then they grabbed Hu Jiang and his party and left. There is only a Yulong gang and a head of the criminal department. There is no need for Xiao Wuji to personally take action and let Beihu lead a team to do it. That's it. If someone really is found, it won't be too late for Xiao Wuji to intervene. Ichthyosaurus gang? Fish and dragons danced all night, and carps leaped over the dragon gate? The meaning of this name is not simple. Xiao Wuji thought of the name Yulong gang, thought about it in his heart, and smiled lightly. After that, Shui Hua and Song Liman were divided into two teams. After catching them all, they ransacked their homes. Song Liman took people to the criminal department to arrest Li Qiun, the head of the criminal department. The home search was over in the home of the Yulong gang. But the money copied was beyond Shui Hua's expectation. It wasn't that it was too much money, it was money too little. Is that all? Underscore. Our people all know the rules and won't break them. Besides, this is an order from Master Qinhu, and the brothers don't have the courage. Seeing what the general said, Shui Hua nodded slightly and believed the words of his subordinates. They were all Xiao Wuji's subordinates. They followed Xiao Wuji to perform tasks on weekdays and made a lot of money every time. No one dared to break the rules, resulting in I was disgusted by Xiao Wuji. That was picking up sesame seeds and throwing away watermelons. So, this is the only amount of wealth that the Yulong gang has. Shui Hua looked at the account book, then looked at the cash and banknotes in the box at his feet, and shook his head speechlessly. After searching the entire Yulong gang, he only found a mere 30,000 taels of silver. 30,000 taels is a big deal for ordinary people. It may be a huge sum of money, but to a wealthy businessman it is simply a drop in the bucket. Thinking back to when they and Xiaoji went on their first mission and caught the flower-picking thief, Su Yu gave them a thank you gift of 50,000 taels of silver. Fish the Long Gang has extorted surrounding shops for many years, and also trafficked people in private. No matter how you think about it, you know, Li Qianzhao, that their property must be more than this. There are only two possibilities for this situation. One is that all the money is hidden by Hu Jiang well, the second option is that all the money was given to his backers by Hu Jiang. Xuehua thinks that the second option is more likely. Let's go back to the imperial prison and ask Hu Jiang. Underscore. 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 Underscore people came to the door, this was a slap in their face. It was a pity that a group of civil servants did not dare to show their teeth to the Jinyaiwei. Although there were many arrests in the Ministry of Punishment, they were too poor in skills and did not dare to step forward to stop them. The minister of the Ministry of Punishment had an angry look on his face. Came out, looked at Song Liman and shouted coldly, "What are you Jinyaiwei people doing, do you want to rebel?" Song Liman was neither humble nor arrogant. He smiled slightly at the Minister of Punishment and said, "Song Liman, a member of the Jinyi Guards of the 100 Households, is here to arrest Li Qiun, the head of the Punishment Department, on the orders of Lord Qinhu. I hope that the Lord Shangshu will not stop him. Arrest Li Qiun." The surrounding officials from the Ministry of Justice were stunned for a moment, and then all eyes were focused on a middle-aged official. That person was obviously Li Qiun. When Li Qiun heard that the Jinyaiwei was going to arrest him, he was so frightened that he broke out in a cold sweat. Song Liman noticed Li Qiun's presence, stepped forward and said, "Are you Li Qiun? Something happened to you. Come with us. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 223. Song Liman noticed Li Qiun's presence, stepped forward and said, "Are you Li Qiun? Something happened to you, please come with us." Li Qiun backed away repeatedly, shouting, "Why do you want to arrest me? I'm here again, it's not illegal, you have no right to arrest me. If I don't leave, I won't go anywhere." The minister of the Ministry of Punishment stepped forward to stop him and said, "You are only from 100 households, what right do you have to arrest people in the Ministry of Punishment? Even if Li Qiun really triggered the laws of the Great Zhou dynasty, our Ministry of Punishment would conduct a thorough investigation and bring him to justice, and it would not be the Jinyaiwei's turn to point fingers." Although Jinyaiwei and the Ministry of Punishment are both institutions of the Great Zhou dynasty, the relationship between the two is not good. It can even be said that the relationship between Jinyaiwei and all institutions is not very good. Today, Jinyaiwei comes to arrest people in a big way. If they don't do anything, if you let the Jinyaiwei take people away, then the punishment department will lose face. As the minister of the punishment department, he will never allow this to happen, so he has to stand up and stop it. In addition, there is a second reason. That is to make up for it. If Li Qiun really violated the laws of the Zhou dynasty, it must be solved by the Ministry of Punishment itself. If it is found out by the Jinyaiwei, it will appear that the Ministry of Punishment is incompetent and has neglected oversight. He, the Minister of Punishment, will inevitably be charged with dereliction of duty and lacks control of his subordinates. Therefore, whether it is for the Ministry of Punishment or for himself, Shangshu of the Ministry of Punishment cannot let Song Liman take the person away. Song Liman held up his hands and said, "Sir, Shangshu, if you block it like this, you are suspected of colluding with Li Qiun." The Minister of Punishment straightened his back and snorted coldly, I am a pure official and can withstand investigation. I am not afraid of the charges against Luoji, the royal guard. In short, you are just 100 households, so you can't take anyone away today. Song Liman said, if 100 households can't do it, what about 1,000 households? As he spoke, Song Liman took out 1,000 household token and said loudly to many officials of the Ministry of Punishment, by the order of the 13th Taibao Xiaowaji Kinhu, we are arresting Li Qiun, the head of the punishment department, and bringing him to justice. No one is allowed to stop him. Anyone who disobeys will be punished as an accomplice. Xiaowaji. 360. Many officials from the Ministry of Justice were shocked when they looked at the bright red token of the 13 Taibao. There was also a trace of fear on the old face of the Minister of Justice. He looked down upon a mere Jin Yiwei. He dared to confront thousands of households. After all, he was a dignified minister and an important minister in the court. But Xiaowaji was different. Xiaowaji was the 13th eunuch and a confidant of the emperor. The most important thing was that Xiaowaji came to his rescue. He has meritorious service, and he also saved many ministers. Many ministers owe Xiaowaji a huge favor. The grace of saving lives cannot be repaid by ordinary things. Therefore, when encountering trouble, many ministers will give Xiaowaji a huge favor. Xiaowaji is a face-saving person. Now Xiaowaji is arresting people according to the rules. Although he is arresting people from the Ministry of Punishment, he is within the scope allowed by the law. Although he is the minister of the Ministry of Punishment, there is really no reason to stop him. If he is stopped by force, there is really a suspicion of conspiracy. When many officials from the Ministry of Justice knew that it was Xiaowaji who wanted to arrest Li Qiun, their eyes changed when they looked at Li Qiun. Previously, they suspected that Li Qiun was wronged, but now it is different. Although Xiaowaji is young, he does things well. However, his methods were extremely sophisticated, and his style of conduct was well known to everyone. There must be something wrong with the person he wanted to arrest. For a moment, no one doubted that Li Qiun had been wronged, and they all speculated in their hearts what crime Li Qiun had committed, and how he had provoked Xiaowaji had to personally order his arrest. You know, Xiaowaji is the 13th Taibao, and no one he targets is simple. If he commits some minor crimes, Xiaowaji will not even look at him. Li Qiun sat down on the ground. He was trembling with fear, his body and mind were cold, and his eyes were dull. When Xiaowaji's name came out, he knew that the officials of the Ministry of Punishment could not protect him. Those who Xiaowaji wanted to arrest, could not be arrested unless the emperor issued an order or the prince as a guarantee, or the chief assistant Li Wenbo came forward in person, otherwise no one could protect him. And seeing Li Qiun's embarrassed look, everyone knew that Li Qiun had a guilty conscience and he had definitely broken the law. The Jin Yiwei did not arrest the wrong person. The Minister of Punishment sighed. He said in a helpless tone, you guys take the person away. Seeing this, Song Liman put away his token, bowed slightly to the Minister of Punishment, and said with a smile, thank you, Your Excellency, for your understanding. If I have been rude to you, I hope you will forgive me. They are all court officials. They don't look up when they look down. If it's not necessary, Song Liman doesn't want to offend the dignified minister of the Ministry of Justice, so he must give some face when he speaks. Then, Song Liman waved his hand, and two knights in golden clothes came forward and dragged Li Qiun away. Let's go. Li Qiun was so frightened that his whole body became weak. He didn't even have the strength to walk, so he could only drag himself away. He felt like he was mourning for his heir, still muttering to himself, I am not guilty, I am not guilty. After Song Liman and others left, the Minister of Punishment glanced at the officials and shouted coldly, okay, let's go back to work, why are we still here? Isn't that embarrassing enough? After saying that, the Minister of Punishment left with a dark expression. Many officials were talking about it. Tell me, what exactly did Li Qiun commit? How could he actually provoke Xiao Qianhu to personally order his arrest? I don't know, but no matter what, Li Qiun's matter must be big. You have to know that the people Xiao Qianhu deals with are either evil sects or demon sect rebels. It is absolutely no small matter that he can give orders personally. Isn't Li Qiun a traitor to the demon cult? An official said suddenly. The faces of many officials changed drastically. No way. Colluding with the demonic cult would be a major crime against the 9 tribes. Li Qiun didn't have the guts. No, no, no. Everyone should go back and wait for news. I hope it won't implicate us. Many officials of the Ministry of Justice left, but no one noticed that another middle-aged head of the Ministry of Justice quietly left the office of the Ministry of Justice. Jinling City, Qinglong Street, outside the palace, Qixingfang. Those who can live here are either princes or kings. At least he is a marquis. A luxurious courtyard with 9 entrances and 9 exits is located here, elegantly decorated and magnificent. Every entrance of the courtyard is guarded by soldiers, and anyone who approaches the courtyard will be detained and strictly scrutinized. This is the Yongping Palace, the residence of Xia Zhengting, the 6th prince of the current dynasty. In the back garden of the palace, in the pavilion, a young man is leaning leisurely on the mat, holding a glass of wine in his hand. The aroma of the wine is overflowing. He is the 6th prince of the current dynasty, Xia Zhengting. Xia Zhengting is handsome and has an extraordinary temperament. He is a famous handsome man in Jinling City and is deeply favored by Emperor Jingtai. At this time, Xia Zhengting is watching the singer perform a dance. In front of him, there were 18 beautiful dancers dressed in tulle, dancing gracefully. There were musicians playing piano and flute on both sides to accompany the dancers. Your Highness, please have another drink. A beautiful concubine saw that Xia Zhengting had finished his wine and immediately refilled it for him. Xia Zhengting smiled slightly, picked up the wine glass and drank it all in one gulp. In his free time, he danced, listened to the piano, and admired beauties. The life of a prince was so boring and boring. Simplicity. At this moment, an old man came from the side and whispered softly into Xia Zhengting's ear. Xia Zhengting, who was listening to the piano and had already narrowed his eyes, suddenly opened his eyes, with a cold light in his eyes. It was fleeting. Then he smiled and didn't say a word, just waved his hands gently. Upon seeing this, the dancers, piano players and musicians in front immediately stopped dancing and playing the piano, stood up and saluted Xia Zhengting respectfully, and then all retreated. Exit. Even Xia Zhengting's concubine also retreated. Only Xia Zhengting and the old man were left in the pavilion. After a while, the housekeeper of the palace came to the pavilion with a middle-aged official. The middle-aged official sneaked out. The head of the punishment department who is out of the punishment department Yamen. Buledin Changming met with His Highness the 6th Prince. Buledin Changming, the head of the criminal department, came to Xia Zhengting, knelt down and kowtowed. Get up. Xia. Zhengting leaned on the mat without getting up. He waved his hands and said, "What happened, so anxious? Why did you rush to the palace in such a hurry?" Buledin Changming said, "Back to your highness, people from Jinyue came to the punishment department today and took Li Qiun away." Xia Zhengting frowned, "Do you know what the reason is?" Buledin Changming said, "I don't know, but the person who gave the order was Xiao Wuji, the 13th Taibao. Xiao Wuji personally gave the order. This matter was not trivial, so the official came in a hurry." Xiao Wuji. Xia Zhengting repeated Xiao Wuji's name. His expression remained unchanged, showing no emotion or anger. He rolled his eyes as if he was thinking. After a few breaths, Xia Zhengting looked at Buledin Changming and said, "I know this. Your summons was timely this time. I will remember you for your service. Go down. Bulletin. Chang Ming showed joy on his face, kowtowed respectfully and said, I would like to thank you, Your Majesty. After the salute, Bulletin Chang Ming hurried away, the joy on his face clearly visible. After Bulletin Chang Ming walked away, the old man next to Xia Zhengting asked, Your Majesty, how could Xiao Wuji target a mere Li Qiun? Xia Zhengting said, I don't know, but Li Qiun can't stay, and all the industries related to Li Qiun have to be given up. Xia Zhengting looked at the old man next to him and said with a cold face, send someone to Jinyue to jail and tell Li Qiun to shut up. Including Li Qiun's family, don't leave anyone behind. The Yulong gang controlled by Li Qiun was also wiped out. The old man nodded respectfully. I obey. Xia Zhengting looked at the lake in front of him and said expressionlessly, the Yulong gang has been quite successful in using it over the years. I feel a little reluctant to give up like this. The old man said this matter happened because of Xiao Wuji. Do you want me to go down and bring him to justice? The old man made a gesture of cutting his throat. Need not. Xia Zhengting shook his head. Xiao Wuji is now the 13th Taibao. He has a high position and is also a confidant of his father. He cannot be touched casually. Besides, news came from Jin Yiwei that Xiao Wuji had broken through to the realm of Grand Master. He is very powerful, and his Qinggong skills are even more mysterious. Even if you take action yourself, you may not be able to kill him. If you act rashly, not only will you not be able to kill him, but you will also alert him. If you give up the Ichthyosaurus gang, let it go. I can establish a second Ichthyosaurus gang at any time if I wish. Because it's not worth it for a mere Yulong gang to face off against Xiao Wuji. The old man bowed and said, Your Majesty is wise, and my subordinates admire you. Xia Zhengting suddenly laughed and said, I have heard of Xiao Wuji's name a long time ago, but I didn't expect to get entangled with him because of this matter. I had thought about recruiting this person before, but now I have made a grudge first. Things are really unpredictable. The old man said, if the prince wants to recruit Xiao Wuji, there is no chance. After all, Xiao Wuji does not know that Li Qiun is the prince's man. If Xiao Wuji can really be brought under his command, it will indeed be a great help. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 224. The old man said, if the prince wants to recruit Xiao Wuji, there is no chance. After all, Xiao Wuji does not know that Li Qiun is the prince's man. If Xiao Wuji can really be brought under his command, it will indeed be a great help. The old man is also a strong Grand Master. He knows how difficult it is to break through the Grand Master realm. Xiao Wuji has already broken through the Grand Master realm at such a young age, and his future achievements will definitely be higher than his. This is a sharp sword. If you can conquer it, the prince's road to seizing the throne becomes even easier. Xia Zhengting said calmly, Xiao Wuji is a fierce tiger, he is proud and unruly, and he will not surrender casually. The old man flattered the prince, the emperor and the nobles are the sons and grandsons of dragons. Even if Xiao Wuji is a tiger, he is no match for the real dragon. Under the power of the dragon, I am not afraid that he will not surrender. Xia Zhengting glanced at the old man and laughed loudly. The laughter spread throughout the back garden of the palace. Jin Yiwei ordered them to be imprisoned. Hu Qiang, the leader of the Yulong gang, and several leaders were all arrested and interrogated by Xuehua's General Banner. After Li Qiun was captured and imprisoned, Song Liman personally interrogated him. However, Li Qiun only admitted that he was behind the control of the Yulong gang, and refused to talk about the rest. Even if Song Liman used the 18 methods of Jin Yiwei to extract confessions, Li Qiun still hard-spoken. This old boy has very strong bones. Song Liman looked at Li Qiun, who was covered in blood with no intact skin on his body, and admired him a little. Li Qiun had been tortured by Song Liman to the point of dying, with only half his life left. In this case, he could still keep the secret. Which shows the toughness of this person. This is unmatched by many warriors in the world. There is no progress in the case, so Song Liman can only report to Xiao Wuji and obey Xiao Wuji's orders. If Xiao Wuji personally takes action, no one in the world can resist it. Interrogation. He had seen the power of the life and death talisman with his own eyes. After his shift, Song Liman left Bijin Fuzi and rushed to Xiao Mansion. Xiao Wuji was still on vacation. Although he ordered them to handle the case, Xiao Wuji did not return to Bijin. Fuzi. That night, the lobby of Xiao Mansion. My lord, this is the situation. Song Liman told the case from beginning to end. Beside him, Xuehua was also there. He arrived one step ahead of Song Liman and reported the investigation of the Yulong gang to Xiao Wuji. After listening to the reports of the two, Xiao Wuji he chuckled, interesting, this matter is getting more and more interesting. A Yulong gang that runs rampant and extorts money. After the search, only 30,000 taels of silver were found. A head of the criminal department could withstand the 18 kinds of interrogation and torture from Jin Yiwei and would rather die than reveal the person behind the scenes. It can be seen that a little fish, the background of the dragon gang, may be much bigger than Xuehua and Song Liman imagined. Sir, is this Yulong gang secretly controlled by Chief Li? Xuehua said suddenly. Song Liman's eyes lit up and he echoed, Sir, what Xuehua said makes sense. Only the Li family can make Li Qiun so afraid that he would rather die than reveal the person behind the scenes. The more the two of them thought about it, the more they felt that this possibility was very high. The Li family raised countless dead men, and there were also countless illegal gangs that secretly controlled it. The Yulong gang was probably one of them. But this time, Xiao Wuji's intuition told him, the Yulong gang has nothing to do with Li Wenbo. He has no evidence, just a vague feeling. It's hard to explain, but it is real. While Xiao Wuji was discussing the case with Xuehua and Song Liman, the official of the Changlianfang building of Jinling City, the house suddenly burst into flames. The fire burned like a giant flaming beast, swallowing up the entire official house. Neighbors and people around them spontaneously came to put out the fire, and people from the government also arrived as soon as possible. But the fire, it was too big to be extinguished. The plaque fell from the gate of the official residence and fell into the fire. On the plaque, the word Li was clearly visible. Yes, this is Li Qiun's residence. The fire spread and destroyed the fire. The official residence was burned to the ground and was put out in the early morning of the next day. At the same moment when the Li mansion was on fire, a Jinyi guardsman secretly entered Li Qiun's cell in the Jinyuwei prison. Li Qiun had been tortured to the point of dying. At this moment, he had lost consciousness and fell into a coma. The warrior took away Li Qiun's life without any effort, leaving no trace. From the appearance, Li Qiun died under the torture of Jin Yiwei. At the same time, the fish was imprisoned. Someone also entered the cells of the Dragon Gang members. All members of the Yulong Gang were killed, leaving no one alive. By the time the situation in the prison was discovered, it was already the next day. Damn it, didn't I ask you to watch them carefully? Why does this happen? Underscore. Waste, they are all a bunch of waste. Xuehua and Song Liman were furious. It looked like someone was killing people and silencing them. Killing people and silencing them under their noses was a slap in their faces. This was the task Xiao Wuji gave them, but now they have failed. How can they explain this to Xiao Wuji? Xuehua and Song Liman looked at each other and saw the helplessness in each other's eyes. Forget it, let's report it to the adults. Someone was actually silenced in the imperial edict. This matter is definitely not simple. It seems that the person behind Li Qiun took action. This is no longer within our control. Then the two of them went to Xiao Mansion and reported the situation of the imperial edict. After hearing the reports of the two of them, Xiao Wuji was not surprised. On the contrary, he had expected it. The fish dragon gang is indeed not simple. In this ancient dynasty, not everyone dared to use the word dragon casually. Those who dared to name with the word dragon were all people with background or confidence. The meaning of the word fish and dragon is even more complicated. The word ichthyosaur means that a carp jumps over the dragon gate and transforms into a dragon. If the people dare to use it, it will be a crime of transgression, implying disobedience. So Xiao Wuji felt from the beginning that the Ichthyosaurus gang was not simple. It was just a criminal department. The leader, Li Qiun, couldn't control it at all. Now it seems to be true. There was a fire in Li Qiun's house last night. Li Qiun's whole family was burned to death at home, no one survived. Li Qiun himself also died in the Jinyue prison. Although it looked like he was tortured to death, but anyone with a brain can guess that he was silenced. The members of the Yulong gang were also silenced. Dare to kill people and silence them in the Jinyue prison, which shows how audacious the people behind the scenes are. He also has the ability to reach into the imperial prison of Jinyue. There are only a few people in the Great Zhou court who can do such a thing. Sir, what should we do next? Now there is no evidence, and all our clues have been lost. Xuehua looked at Xiao Wuji and asked. Xiao Wuji said, since all the clues have been broken, let's stop here and stop investigating. No more checking. Both Xuehua and Song Liman were a little confused. This is not like the style of their masters. Xiao Wuji's consistent style is to eradicate the roots without leaving any future troubles. When did raising tigers cause trouble? Xiao Wuji said it's hard to continue investigating this case. It doesn't make any sense anymore, we can't do anything about the man behind the scenes. Zero request for flowers. Xuehua and Song Liman were shocked when they heard this. They knew that their master must have guessed something. They were curious, but they did not dare to ask. Some things, the less known, the better. The less you know, the longer your life. Even Xiao Wuji was so secretive, let alone them. The two of them obeyed the order and left the Xiao mansion. Xiao Wuji walked out of the lobby, looked up at the sky, and murmured to himself, which one is it, where is the prince? Xiao Wuji did guess the person behind Li Qiun, and his intuition was right. The person behind the Yulong gang was not Li Wenbo, but a prince of the current dynasty. The name of the Yulong gang pinned the ambition of that prince. Only but Xiao Wuji didn't know which prince he was. Emperor Jingtai had many princes, and 9 of them were adults. Among these 9 princes, the eldest prince had been established as the prince, and the second prince and the third prince were having sex in the court. The fight between the princes and the wooing of civil and military officials have revealed their ambition to seize the heir. As for the other 6 princes, although they do not participate in the seize the heir on the surface, and some even belong to the 3 princes, who secretly Since ancient times, as long as he is a prince, no one can refuse the temptation of the supreme position. Guessing this, Xiao Wuji has no intention of continuing the investigation. That's enough. Xiao Wuji has no need to put the Yulong gang behind his back. He also caught all the people in one swoop. He stopped when he saw fit. If the prince behind the scenes was a smart man, he would naturally understand what he meant and would not pursue him any further. But if the Empress Prince was a fool and insisted on seeking his own death, Xiao Wuji would also. He won't show mercy. He's just a prince, Xiao Wuji doesn't dare to kill him. Jieyang Mansion in Jinling. The night is deep, the moon is in the sky, the stars are dotted, the evening wind is blowing, and it is biting. The cold winter night seems to be able to freeze the human blood. Dark clouds covering the sky, the moon is dim and the stars are dark, and no light can be seen everywhere. In this quiet night, you can clearly hear a pin dropping on the ground. Only the interior of the Du family in Jieyang Prefecture is brightly lit, the gongs and drums are noisy, and the surrounding people, everything is completely different. The Du family is a famous martial arts family in Zhejiang Prefecture with a long heritage. Du Kangxiang, the old man of the Du family, is a powerful master at the peak. He was also on the ranking list decades ago. Later, when he got older, he always, if you are unable to break through to the Grand Master realm, you will automatically fail the ranking. Although Du Kangxiang is old and his strength has declined, his power is still there. With him in charge, the Du family's prestige is still resounding. The younger generations of the Du family are also striving for success. Du Kangxiang has two sons who have broken through to the Grand Master level. Although the Grand Master realm is only in the early stage of Grand Master, it can still maintain the family business. The three generations of disciples of the Du family are also full of talented people. Especially Du Zitang, the eldest grandson of the Du family, has already broken through to the late Xiantian stage at the age of 26 and is ranked 70 on the Hidden Dragon list. Second, he is a real young genius. Today is Du Zitang's wedding day. The Du mansion is decorated with flowers, and red cloth and red lanterns are hung everywhere. When Du Kangxiang was young, he had friends all over the world, and when his eldest grandson got married, of course he would have a big banquet. All the heroes from all over the world were invited to come and have a wedding banquet. At the banquet, Du Kangxiang, who had all white hair and beard, exchanged glasses with many friends from all over the world, and their faces were rosy after drinking. The old laughter spread throughout the Du mansion. The back house of the Du mansion, Du Zitang, the protagonist of the wedding, pushed away a group of friends who were joining in the fun. Go, go, go and have a drink, don't disturb me from doing business. Amidst the teasing laughter of his friends, Du Zitang opened the door and entered the wedding room. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 225. The wedding room was a festive red and the candles were shining brightly. He immediately saw his wife sitting on the bed. Du Zitang was a little drunk, but he was sober and walked towards his wife with a smile. But at this moment, something unexpected happened. A cold light suddenly lit up in the room and disappeared in an instant. Du Zitang's smile froze on his face, and he continued to move forward. But after taking only 2 steps, his head fell off his neck. The blood sprayed and dyed the windows, tables, and chairs red, adding another touch of red to the festive wedding room. Mr. Xian? What's wrong? Du Zitang's wife is also a heroine. She heard the sound of Du Zitang entering the room and thought he would come to remove the hijab. But the footsteps suddenly disappeared after taking 2 steps, which made her suspicious. According to the rules, the bride cannot remove the hijab by herself. Hijab, that's unlucky. But the bride suddenly smelled the smell of blood. She felt bad and quickly opened her hijab. After removing her hijab, the bride saw Du Zitang lying on the ground with his body in 2 parts. Seeing Du Zitang being killed, the bride's first reaction was to call someone. Come. Puff. As soon as the bride opened her mouth, the sound suddenly stopped. The deadly cold light reappeared, instantly passing over the bride's neck, bringing up a drop of blood. The life in the bride's eyes quickly disappeared, and then her head slowly slipped from her neck. With a pop, the bride's 130 headless corpse collapsed and fell together with the groom Du Zitang. The bride and groom, the Mandarin ducks in trouble, returned to Lianshan together. Today is Du Zitang's wedding day. He never thought that tonight would be his death. In a blink of an eye. After Du Zitang and his bride died tragically, the candle light in the room flickered slightly, and then fell into dead silence. The murderer never showed up from beginning to end, and no one knew whether he was a boy or a girl, fat or thin, tall or short. After killing Du Zitang and his wife, the murderer disappeared. The wedding banquet in the Du mansion is still going on, with everyone drinking and laughing. No one knew that the bride and groom had been killed in the wedding room. The deaths of Du Zitang and his wife were just the beginning. After that, the murderer began his bloodbath in Dufu. The murderer will appear in any corner of Du Mansion and kill the people in front of him silently. He had no specific target or specific place to kill. Whether it was the warriors of the Du Mansion or the disciples of various sects who came to attend the wedding banquet. Whenever he gets a chance, he will kill. Relying on his invisible light skills and unique assassination techniques, the murderer killed 40 or 50 people in a row without being discovered. But there are experts in Du Mansion after all, and soon someone noticed something strange about Du Mansion. At the banquet, an old man suddenly looked towards the back house of Du Mansion with a solemn expression. Tian He, what's wrong? Du Kanao looked at the old man and asked. The old man's name was Su Tian he was the leader of the Fihi sect and Du Kanao's close friend. The two had known each other when they were young, and had experienced life and death together. A true acquaintance of life and death. Su Tianhe moved his nose and said coldly, something happened, I smell a smell of blood. What? The smell of blood. At the banquet, the faces of many masters changed. They put down the wine glasses in their hands, and there was no smile on their faces. They were all experienced people, and their vigilance was already engraved in their bones. As soon as Su Tianhe said this, they were ready preparation for battle. Regardless of whether what Su Tianhe said is true or not, it is always right to be cautious. Besides, they all know Su Tianhe's ability. If he is not sure, Su Tianhe will never make a mistake. Could something really happen? Du Kangao's face instantly darkened. Just when he was about to order a thorough investigation, he heard a sharp scream coming from the back house. Ah! As soon as the scream came out, the hero's expression suddenly changed, and they all looked in the direction of the back house. Whoosh! 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 A few black shadows flashed past, and Du Kanangjao, Su Tianhe, Luo Hua sect elder Hua Luyu, Luo family patriarch Luo Chiu's Hung, Xingan sect elder Ding Wu and others had disappeared from the banquet. Du Kangao's sons, Su Tianhe's disciples, Luo Hua sect disciples, and Xingan sect disciples all reacted a step slower. When they came to their senses, they only saw an empty wine table. Du Kangao and others has disappeared. What's wrong? What happened? I don't know, but the scream just now came from the back house. Could it be that something happened to the bride and groom? Impossible. This is the Du Mansion. There are so many senior experts present today. Who dares to mess around in the Du Mansion? Mr. Du, Mr. Su, and others have all gone there, and they must be able to solve the problem soon. Come on, keep drinking, keep drinking. With the old lady and the others in charge, everything will be fine. The young disciples continued to drink and eat meat. Only the innate elite disciples of each sect looked a little solemn. They were more vigilant and had begun to use their skills to dispel the alcohol in their bodies. Du Kangao's two sons also hurried to the back house, among them one person's face was full of worry. His name was Du Zeping, and Du Zitang, who was getting married tonight, was his son. In the back house of Du Mansion, Du Kangao and others looked at the two headless corpses on the ground, and their faces were a little ugly. Especially Du Kangao, his face was so gloomy that water could drip from his face. Killing someone on his Du family's happy day was simply a naked provocation, and he didn't take his Du family seriously at all. Su Tianhe knelt down, inspected the body, and said coldly, the murderer struck very quickly and cut off their heads in an instant. The weapon is very thin, it should be a soft sword or sky silk weapon. The murderer's Qinggong is also very high. Du Kangao, Su Tianhe, Hua Luyu, and others are all masters, and their attainments in Qinggong are not low. They rushed to the back house as soon as they heard the screams, but they came a step too late, and even the shadow of the murderer could not be seen. I didn't see it. This shows how high the murderer's Qinggong is. No, Zitang. Suddenly, Du Kang's expression changed, and he turned into a black shadow and shot towards Du Zitang's wedding room. He didn't care whether he would break the rules or not, and broke in directly without knocking. After entering the room, Du Kangao saw the ground on the ground at a glance. The two headless corpses. Zitang. Du Kangjao burst into tears and wailed. Su Tianhe and others arrived shortly after, and when they saw the corpse on the ground, they all showed a trace of unbearability. Among them, Hua Luyu, the elder of the Luahua sect, also exclaimed and stepped forward to hug the bride. The corpse. This bride is none other than his disciple Hua Luyu. This marriage between the Du family and the Luahua sect was originally a happy event. But I didn't expect that it would happen. This happened. At this time, Du Kanao's two sons also arrived. When Du Zeping saw his son being killed, his vision immediately went dark and he almost fell down. Fortunately, his brother helped him and he was able to stand firm. Looking at his son's headless body, Du Zeping's eyes instantly turned red. The white-haired man gave the black-haired man a gift. At the same time, he was filled with hatred and was filled with cold murderous aura. His hair and robes danced wildly. Look for it, mobilize everyone in Du Mansion to look for it. Du Kangjao shouted sternly, he must still be here and can't run away. Even if the Du Mansion is turned upside down tonight, we still have to find the murderer. Du Kanao's expression was twisted, extremely ferocious. A pair of tiger eyes were like a ghost, extremely scarlet, as if he wanted to choose people to devour. Soon, the news of the murder of the bride and groom spread throughout the Du Mansion. The guests in Du Mansion were all shocked, and all the warriors in Du Mansion began to search for the whereabouts of the murderer. The guests who came to the wedding banquet also spontaneously joined the search for the murderer. The murderer killed people at the wedding banquet, not only slapping Du Fu in the face, but also slapping them in the face. In addition, their disciples also suffered casualties. Publicly and privately, they all want to help. I thought that with so many experts and manpower in Du Fu, catching the murderer would be a very simple matter. But I didn't expect that the subsequent development exceeded everyone's expectations. During the search for the murderer, no trace of the murderer was found. Instead, many people in the Du Mansion were killed. First, 3 generations of disciples of the Du Mansion were killed one after another, and the warriors of the Du Mansion suffered heavy casualties. After that, he was the second-generation disciple of Du Fu. Du Zeping, who was eager for revenge, was the first second-generation disciple to be killed. He only saw a black shadow flashing before his eyes, and then his head flew up. When Du Kangxiang and others arrived, they only saw Du Zeping's headless body. Du Zeping's head was taken away by the murderer. First the grandson was killed, then the son. Time and time again, the white-haired man sent the black-haired man to his side, and even a tough guy like Du Kangxiang couldn't bear it anymore. He immediately spurted out a mouthful of blood and almost fell to the ground unconscious. Fortunately, Su Tianhe injected his true energy in time and protected his heart, so he recovered. However, the killings in Du Fu did not stop. People from the Du Mansion were killed one after another, and many disciples from various sects who came to attend the wedding banquet were also killed or injured. Hua Luyu, the elder of the Luahua sect, Su Tianhe, the head of the Fihe sect, Luo Chuzheng, the head of the Luo family in Jieyang, and Ding Wu, the elder of the Xingan sect, also disappeared one after another. You can't see people alive, but you can't see corpses even if they are dead. Finally it was Du Kangxiang's turn. He died in Du Zitang's wedding room, and his head was also cut off. When Du Fu's warriors discovered Du Kangxiang's body, they also saw the missing heads of Du Zeping and the second and third generation disciples of the Du family piled together. Looking at the horrifying scene, everyone was scared to death. After that, no one dared to look for the murderer. They all gathered together, hugging each other for warmth, hoping that this terrifying night would pass quickly. That mysterious murderer can even kill masters, let alone them? Everyone has only one last thought left. The sky will light up soon and they can escape as soon as possible. But this idea turned out to be false. At dawn the next day, the murderous intention receded. Everyone discovered that all the bodies killed last night had disappeared. Only the blood stains on the ground proved that a body had been lying here. The heroes fled in all directions, but unexpectedly, the bloody wedding in Du Mansion was just the beginning, and the killing was far from the end. Jinling City, Xiao Mansion. That night, Xiao Wuji and Su Weiner were lingering. Su Weiner fell asleep, and Xiao Wuji left the Xiao Mansion silently. In the dark night, Xiao Wuji teleported quickly, 7 or 8 times in the blink of an eye. With a flash of his body, Xiao Wuji's figure suddenly grew taller and he turned into a golden-faced Lion King. The golden-faced Lion King, who had disappeared for so long, finally reappeared. Coming to Hualiu Lane, Xiao Wuji walked into a brothel called Xiaoxiang Pavilion. Of course Xiao Wuji came here not to look for flowers, but to do something important. Entering the Xiaoxiang Pavilion, an old madam with extremely slim shoulders immediately came up to her with a flattering look on her face. Invite the guest officer inside. If you dare to ask the guest officer if there is a girl you know well, I will send someone to call her immediately. Xiao Wuji said expressionlessly, I'm looking for someone, he will be here soon. The old bastard smiled and said, then please go to the private room and wait. I will prepare wine and food right away. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at Westlake. Chapter 226. Following the madam, Xiao Wuji came to a private room on the 3rd floor. Several servants brought good wine and food, and several dancers entered the room to dance. Xiao Wuji treated these people without pretense and drank and ate alone. After a while, a thin middle-aged man walked in. His appearance is very ordinary, the kind that you wouldn't find in a crowd. Once you take one look at it, you will soon forget it. But Xiao Wuji knew this person. In other words, Xiao Wuji recognized the unique smell of this person. That's the smell of demon sect members. Yes, this Xiaoxiang Pavilion is a brothel on the surface, but in fact, it is a hall of the demon sect. This middle-aged man is none other than the demon cult's Tiangang Hall master, Tian Suxing. Long time no see, Lion King. Tian Suxing came to Xiao Wuji, clasped his fists and bowed slightly. Xiao Wuji glanced at Tian Suxing expressionlessly, and said lightly, sit down. Thank you, Lion King. Tian Suxing sat down opposite Xiao Wuji, glanced at the dancing girls around him, and said with a smile, I wonder if the Lion King is satisfied with my arrangement. If you are not satisfied, you can choose any of the courtesans and dancers in the Xiaoxiang Pavilion. If the Lion King has a special hobby, he will be able to satisfy it. The Xiaoxiang Pavilion is the entrance to the demonic church, and the dancers and courtesans here are naturally followers of the demonic cult. However, these women are not important believers. The only thing they are useful for is their beauty. If you can use your beauty to win over Jinmian, Lion King, Sky Speed Star will never hesitate. Let's talk about business in 05. Tian Suxing looked stern, raised his screen to check out the dancer in the room, and said seriously, Lion King, please speak. If you don't see me, just pretend I haven't been here. The agreement between me and the demonic cult has also been cancelled. The blood demon is very strong, but I am not a weakling. It is not his turn to put on airs like this to amuse me. Tian Suxing said hurriedly, don't be anxious, Lion King. The master had originally planned to come to see the Lion King. However, the master has made a breakthrough in his skills recently and is in retreat at the moment, So he cannot come. Please forgive me, Lion King. Oh! The blood demon is about to break through again. Xiao Wuji was a little surprised and said the blood demon is now ranked 11th on the heavenly ranking, and he is already the pinnacle master of the Grand Master. If we were to make another breakthrough, would we have to break through to the level of a half-step heavenly being? By then I'll probably be in the top 5 on the heavenly ranking. Tian Suxing was a little proud, but he spoke very modestly. The Lion King is ridiculous. The top 5 on the list are all masters at the half-step heaven level. Even if the master can break through, there is still some gap between them. But the master is indeed in retreat recently, and he really can't come to meet the Lion King. He hopes that the Lion King will wait for a while. Xiao Wuji smiled coldly and said in a low voice, the blood demon's time is precious, and my time cannot be wasted. Tian Suxing, the sincerity of your demon sect is a bit lacking. My patience is almost exhausted. If the demonic cult only has this attitude, then forget about cooperation. Although I, the golden-faced Lion King, am not as powerful as the demon cult, I can still rule the world with my single power. I am not so lowly as to have a hot face but a cold butt. Tian Suxing was a little anxious and quickly advised Lion King, please calm down. Our holy religion is very sincere and I promise not to disappoint Lion King. Please also ask the Lion King to wait patiently for a while, which can be at least half a month or as long as 2 months. The owner will definitely give the Lion King a satisfactory answer. Xiao Wuji glanced at Tian Suxing with cold eyes and said coldly, remember what you said today. If you dare to amuse me again, don't blame me for turning your back and denying anyone. The blood demon may not be able to kill him, but I can still crush you to death. Jiang. A cold light flashed from Xiao Wuji's eyes and disappeared in a flash. A sword intent burst out from Xiao Wuji's body, instantly covering Tian Sustar, making his scalp numb and his skin tingling. In Tian Sustar's eyes, gold. Although the masked Lion King did not draw his sword, the sword energy surrounding his body was endless. Any trace of sword energy could easily kill him. Phew. The window of the private room opened, and Xiao Wuji disappeared without a trace in an instant. Waiting for Tian Suxing to return. When he came to his senses, there was nothing in front of him. Click. 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 A series of soft sounds sounded. Tian Suxing looked down and saw that the wine glasses, plates, and wine bottles on the table were all cracked in half from the middle. The cuts were smooth. Like a mirror, the two halves were exactly the same. It was obvious that these things were cut by the golden-faced Lion King's sword energy. Before Tian Suxing could react, the wine table suddenly split into 2 from the middle, and Tian Suxing followed. The clothes on his body exploded, and a gap was torn from the middle. Tear. Tian Suxing's clothes exploded, and he turned into a white-skinned pig in an instant. Tian Suxing knew that this was a warning to him from the golden-faced Lion King, and also a humiliation to him. But Tian Suxing didn't dare to feel resentment. He only had fear in his heart now. His forehead and back were covered with cold sweat. The golden-faced Lion King could silently split open wine glasses, wine bottles, tables, and the clothes on his body. He also split him apart without a breath. If the golden-faced Lion King wanted to kill him just now, Tian Suxing would have been 2 corpses at this moment. Thinking that he had just walked in front of the gate of hell, Tian Suxing was terrified. His legs he felt weak and his arms were trembling. He held the wine glass tremblingly and wanted to drink, suppressing the fear in his heart. The wine glass in his hand was the only wine glass that was intact and had not been cut by the golden-faced lion. However, in the wine glass, when it touched his lips, the wine glass suddenly burst, and the wine splashed into Tian Suxing's face. The fear in Tian Suxing's heart also completely burst out, and he sat on the ground, gasping for air. At this moment, Tian Suxing seemed to have fallen into an ice hole. The drowning man is desperately breathing air. Only in this way can he soothe the fear in his heart. The golden-faced Lion King. Really awesome. Tian Suxing came back to his senses, and his first reaction was to go to the Blood Demon Spring. After leaving the Xiaoxiang Pavilion, Xiao Wuji turned back and took a deep look at the demonic church. He said with emotion in his heart, the Blood Demon is indeed cautious and sophisticated, unlike Kang Emperor Ningbiu. Xiao Wuji has already met 3 of the 3 demons and 6 emperors of the demon sect, the 9 great protectors. Among them, the Ghost Emperor Qishao Soul Devourer and the Blood Demon Yuquan are both scheming, cautious and sophisticated people. They plan everything before they act. Killing moves one after another. Compared with them, Kang Emperor Ningbiu was obviously far behind. During the chaos in northern Xinjiang, Kang Emperor Ningbiu single-handedly planned the fight between the Destiny sect and the Jinyi guards, and the demon section the fishermen benefit. It seems that the resourcefulness is pretty good, but compared with the Ghost Emperor and the Blood Demon, there is still a long way to go. So Kang Emperor Ningbiu died quickly, but the Ghost Emperor and the Blood Demon were difficult to kill. Xiao Wuji the ghost-killing emperor has some luck, and the Blood Demon can't even be killed even if he wants to. It seems that there is still a difference between the bloodline of the Shangguan clan and that of other clans. Both the Blood Demon Yuquan and the Ghost Emperor 7-kill soul-eating bloodline are from the Shangguan clan, while Ningbiu is a child of a Jiangnan family and a foreign race. The training and teachings the former and the latter received since childhood are completely different. So much so that the relationship between them, the difference is not only in martial arts, but also in resourcefulness. Blood Demon Nether Spring, I don't believe you won't come out. Xiao Wuji took one last look at Xiaoxiang Pavilion, and his figure slowly became transparent, and finally disappeared without a trace. In this Jinling city, there are 2 old dogs that Xiao Wuji wants to kill day and night. Li Wenbo and Blood Demon Yuquan. Only it's a pity that these 2 old dogs were too stubborn and didn't give Xiao Wuji a chance to kill them. Xiao Wuji could only hide in the dark and wait for the opportunity. After removing the disguise, Xiao Wuji returned to his original appearance and returned to the Xiao mansion. In the middle, he hugged Su Weiner and fell asleep. There was no words all night, and it was the next morning when he woke up. Su Weiner helped Xiao Wuji get dressed and wash up. After breakfast, Xiao Wuji put on Fiyu clothes and went to Bijin Fuzi. Come. When he arrived at Fuzi, Bijin town, he greeted a few Kinhu institutes he was familiar with, and then went to the Kinhu Institute. But before his buttocks were warm, Yuan Xiong sent someone to call him. Yuan Xiong was in the middle hall of the Kinhu Institute. Yuan Xiong sitting on the main seat, he looked at everyone and said, I have called you here today because of an important matter. In the past month or so, there have been a series of murders in Jieyang Mansion in Jinling, with more than 300 people dead. Among them are many masters and heads of martial arts families. Now that the murder has spread all over the world, it is suspected that an evil sect is responsible for causing trouble in the world. I, the Jin Yi Wei, have the responsibility of suppressing the Jianghu, and I will not hesitate to capture the devil. Which one of you is willing to lead the team? 1,000 households, you look at me, I look at you, and they all finally turn their attention to Xiao Wuji. Among the thousands households, Xiao Wuji is the strongest, and it is obvious that he is the only one who is the most suitable. Every time in the world, Xiao Wuji, there will be a big devil who will bring trouble to the world. All these big devils are people with peerless martial arts. It is not easy to capture or even kill them. Yuan Xiong has already said that among the more than 300 dead, there are many a master and the head of a martial arts family. This proves the strength of the big devil to be underestimated. Although the masters of their Jinyi Wei are slightly better than the masters of Jianghu, they are not much better. Just sending the ordinary master Qianhu to lead the team would probably not be effective. It is most appropriate to let the great master Xiao Wuji go. It seems that this mission must be yours, Wuji. Yuan Xiong looked at Xiao Wuji and said. Xiao Wuji cupped his hands and grinned. Third brother, if you have anything to do, just ask me. I took a rest for a while. My bones are stiff. I just went out to relax my muscles and bones. Okay, if you want to go, that's fine. Yuan Xiong smiled and nodded, looked at the others and said, you guys go out first. Subordinates resign. A few thousand households retreated, and Yuan Xiong handed a file to Xiaowaji. After Xiaowaji opened it and looked through it, he was a little surprised. Because the situation recorded in the file was much more serious than what Yuan Xiong said. The devil caused trouble in Jieyang Mansion. It's true, but there are not only more than 300 people who died, but more than 1,000 people. Many of them are people who have been famous for decades, including Du Kangxiang, the old man of the Du family, Hua Luyu, the elder of the Luohua sect, and the leader of the Fihe section Su Tianhe of the sect, Luo Chiuzheng, the head of the Luo family of Jieyang Prefecture, Ding Wu, the elder of the Xingan sect. There was even an eminent monk from the Liangchan temple of the Buddhist sect and a real person from the Chixia mountain of the Taoist sect. There were 4 strong masters who died. There are also 6 missing people, all of whom have extraordinary origins. The murder began with a wedding. A month ago, Du Ziteng, the heir to the Du family, a martial arts family in Jieyang Prefecture, got married. Du Ziteng is a young hero, rank 70th on the Hidden Dragon list. Second, it has a certain reputation in the world. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 227. Du Ziteng is a young hero, rank 72nd on the Hidden Dragon list, and has a certain reputation in the world. The woman he wants to marry is also a heroine of the generation, a female disciple of the Luohua sect. Men and women are a perfect match. When he was young, the old man of the Du family made friends all over the world and had many friends in the world. This time for the eldest grandson's wedding, it was natural to invite all the powerful people from all over the world to come to the banquet. For example, Fihe sect and Xingan sect sent elders and disciples to come to congratulate him. It was originally a wedding banquet. The guests enjoyed themselves, the flowers were full and the moon was full. Unexpectedly, on the wedding night, a murder suddenly occurred in Du Mansion. First, the groom Du Ziteng was killed, and the bride also died tragically in the wedding room. Later, a series of murders occurred in the Du Mansion, with dozens or hundreds of people dead, and then they were discovered. On their wedding night, their eldest grandson died tragically, and the happy event turned into a funeral. The old man of the Du family was so angry that he vomited 3 liters of blood on the spot, and quickly led people from the Du family to search for the murderer. But the murderer was not found, and the people who went to find the murderer were killed one after another. The youngest disciple of the 3rd generation of the Du family was the first to die, followed by the 2nd generation disciples, and finally Du Kangxiang, the old master of the Du family. None of the 3 masters of the Du family were spared, they were all killed. When the heroes discovered the body of the old man of the Du family, his head had been chopped off and piled together with the heads of the 2nd and 3rd generation disciples. The entire Du mansion turned into a ghost realm that night. The devil hiding in the dark killed everyone on sight, and hundreds of people died tragically at his hands, but the heroes could not even see his shadow. The heroes gathered together and remained in a stalemate until the next day, when the demon finally retreated. At the end of the night, almost everyone in the Du mansion was killed, and hundreds of guests died tragically. The heroes were furious and united to vow to capture the cruel devil. Not only to avenge the Du family, but also to avenge their own disciples. For example, Hua Luyu, the elder of the Luohua sect, Su Tianhe, the head of the Fihe sect, Luo Chiuzheng, the head of the Luo family of Jieyang Mansion, and Ding Wu, the elder of the Xingan sect, all disappeared while searching for the murderer. These people are all powerful masters who have been famous for decades, but they are not seen alive or dead, which makes the heroes tremble with fear. The demon thing is getting worse and worse. Only then did the eminent monks from Liangchan Temple and the real person from Wuxia Mountain come. I thought that with the leadership of Liangzhen Temple and Wuxia, they could catch the devil. But he didn't expect that the demon was extremely powerful. They set up an ambush and not only failed to catch the devil, but many people were killed. Even the eminent monks of Liangzhen Temple and the real person of Wuxia Mountain were dead and one disappeared. The heroes were frightened and knew that this devil was not something they could deal with, so they wanted to escape from Jieyang Mansion. Who knew that anyone who tried to escape Jieyang Mansion would be killed on the road? The devil has sealed the Jieyang Mansion, no one is allowed in or out, and no one can leave alive. Although he can still communicate with the outside world and spread the news about Jieyang Mansion. But in fact, Jieyang Mansion has become an isolated island. There are so many dead, the murderer is probably a strong grandmaster, and the weakest one is at the peak of the grandmaster level. Third brother, you originally planned to give me this mission, right? Xiao Wuji read the file and said to the point. Yuan Xiong said helplessly, I have to guard Jinling and I can't leave. The first and second eunuchs are not in Jinling. The other elders also have tasks. You are the only one who is free. If you don't go, who will? Xiao Wuji shook his head and laughed. Third brother wants me to go, just say so. Why do you have to beat around the bush and call in all the thousands of households? Yuan Xiong said, isn't this an opportunity for you to shine? Xiao Wuji rolled his eyes wildly. Okay, the joke ends here. Yuan Xiong stopped his smile and said in a different tone, this time when you go to Jieyang Mansion, you must be extremely careful. The devil's identity and origins are a mystery. He killed thousands of people without even revealing his true identity. This shows how powerful this person is. If nothing can be done, prioritize your own safety and seek help as soon as possible. Third brother will rush to Jieyang Mansion to support you as soon as he receives the call for help. Xiao Wuji nodded and said, third brother, don't worry, the younger brother knows it well. My little brother cherishes his life and does not want to die young. Yuan Xiong smiled and scolded, I'm afraid you can't bear to leave your beloved wife at home. Xiao Wuji replied, third brother, can you let go of your sister-in-law at home? Ha 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 ha. Xiao Wuji and Yuan Xiong looked at each other and smiled. After leaving Qinhu residence, Xiao Wuji immediately summoned Shui Hua and Song Liman. He took the two of them to Jieyang Mansion. The number of people on this trip does not need to be large, it is enough to travel lightly. The reason why we brought Shui Hua and Song Liman was to let them do the work. They could do things like collecting intelligence and asking about the situation on behalf of Xiao Wuji. The system didn't issue any tasks this time. Xiao Wuji galloped on his horse, but he was a little confused. Because this time there was no response from the system. Is it possible that the murderer this time is? Xiao Wuji had some guesses in his heart. Jieyang Mansion is located in Jinling, not far from the imperial city. Xiao Wuji and the others worked hard and arrived in just one day. Sir, the Du family is ahead. The three of them rode horses and arrived in front of a wealthy compound. On the left and right sides of the red lacquer gate, there were two warriors from the Du family standing guard. When they saw Xiao Wuji and the others, they immediately stepped forward to stop them. Stop, this is the Du family, no idlers are allowed in. Who are you? The four Du family warriors looked at Xiao Wuji and the three with a somewhat wary and frightened look. They were holding the handle of the sword with their right hand as they spoke, ready to draw the sword out of its sheath at any time. These four people were frightened at first sight. They must have been attacked by the unknown demon. He was frightened. The so-called grass and trees are all soldiers, and the wind is roaring, it refers to the Du mansion at this moment. Give way quickly. Xiao Wuji. The four Du family warriors were shocked when they heard this. Apparently they had all heard of Xiao Wuji's name. Do you have proof? One of them asked. Xiao Wuji took out the Jin Yai Wei token and showed it. After seeing it, The man quickly clasped his fists and bowed in salute. It turns out to be Xiaoqianhu. I have been looking up to you for a long time. I didn't know that Xiaoqianhu was coming, and many villains have offended him. I hope Xiaoqianhu won't blame him. Come in quickly. The four people quickly got out of the way, opened the door at the same time, and welcomed Xiao Wuji into the house. One of them ran very fast, obviously entering the house to report a message. After Xiao Wuji entered the house, an old man came towards him and bowed to him with fists in his hands. He saluted and said, I have met Xiaoqianhu, 2 adults from 100 households. My old man Du Mingxian is the steward of the Du mansion. Let me lead the way for Xiaoqianhu. You're welcome. Xiao Wuji nodded slightly. Following Du Mingxian, Xiao Wuji and the other 3 entered the Du mansion. As a famous martial arts family in Jieyang Mansion, the Du family has been inherited for nearly 80 years. Enter after the mansion. The scenery in the mansion is extremely elegant. However, there is still the smell of blood in the air, and there are still blood stains on the corners and walls, which ruins the garden scenery of the mansion. Moreover, there are white curtains inserted everywhere in the mansion. Hanging on white sails add a touch of sadness. The Du family used to be very lively. This was the time when the disciples in the mansion were practicing martial arts, and their shouts could be heard from every corner. It's a pity that now, alas. Du Mingxian said as he walked. His eyes were filled with tears, showing sadness. Xiao Wuji asked who is in charge of the Du mansion now. Du Mingxian replied the 3rd young master Du Ping is in charge of the Du mansion now. The 3rd young master is the only surviving member of the Du family among the 2nd generation of the Du family. Now that the Du family's children have suffered heavy casualties, only the 3rd young master can take the lead. In addition, with the help of seniors such as Elder Hua Peiyao of Luahua sect, Master Zhenhui of Liangchan Temple, Feng Qingyang of Chixiashan, Du Mansion was able to temporarily calm down the turmoil. It's just that as long as the devil is not eliminated, there will be no peace in the Du family. While talking, Du Mingxian led Xiao Wuji and the other 3 to the lobby of Du Mansion. As soon as he walked to the door, Xiao Wuji heard an angry shout from the lobby, and then a figure flew out. The man stood straight towards Xiao Wuji, flew towards him, and Xiao Wuji could catch the person with just a slight lift of his hand. However, Xiao Wuji did not come to rescue him, but raised his foot to kick the person back. Xiao Wuji did not kill him. It was just a clever effort. I only heard a scream. The man came and went faster, and flew into the lobby with a whoosh. Then there was a sound of clattering bowls, chopsticks, porcelain bottles, and smashing in the lobby. Xiao Wuji behind him, Shuihua and Song Liman wanted to laugh but didn't dare to laugh. They only dared to hold it in, and the corners of their mouths twitched. Du Mingxian, the housekeeper of the Du mansion, also had a twitching face and didn't know what to say. He could only sigh in his heart that Xiao Wuji acted inappropriately. Play your cards according to common sense and unexpectedly. Who dares to kick me? Do you want to die? Xiao Wuji walked into the lobby, and happened to see a middle-aged man with a tea leaf on his head, yelling curses. When he saw Xiao Wuji walking in, he immediately rushed forward aggressively. You're the one who kicked me, right? Who gave you the courage to kick me? My waist was almost broken by your kick. What if I can't find a wife in the future? Xiao Wuji said expressionlessly. If you hadn't been beaten out, you wouldn't have been kicked back by me. If you want to blame the person who beat you away. The middle-aged man was furious and said angrily, can't you pick me up when I fly out? Do I have any grudge against you? Xiao Wuji said calmly, you flew out too suddenly. I thought someone was attacking me, so I subconsciously took action. Okay. You. The middle-aged man was so angry that he couldn't speak. He knew clearly that Xiao Wuji was perfunctory with him, but there was nothing he could do about Xiao Wuji. Saving people is a matter of affection, but not saving people is a duty. He really had no right to ask Xiao Wuji to save him. But middle-aged men can't be angry. Boy, which sect are you a disciple of? So ignorant of the rules. Didn't your master teach you that you should respect your predecessors when traveling in the world? Let me teach you, the younger generation, today. Seeing that Xiao Wuji was no match for him, the middle-aged man began to show off his qualifications and wanted to take action as he spoke. You want to teach me how to behave? Xiao Wuji smiled playfully. Strength is respected in the world, and the winner is the king. Showing off qualifications to compete with age is something only the weak do. Think clearly before taking action. I will not show mercy. You. The man was so angry that he was filled with anger. But at this moment, a burst of ridicule came from the side. Okay, Duan Jingtao, don't embarrass yourself here. As for the strength of that kick just now, his skill may not be worse than yours. If a fight breaks out, it's not certain who will teach whom. The person who spoke was a beautiful middle-aged woman. She looked about 30 years old, but her real age was unknown. Although she was dressed conservatively, she could not hide her curvy and voluptuous figure. Hua Pieyao, what nonsense are you talking about, old woman? Will I be unable to defeat a young boy like him? Duan Jingtao turned around and cursed at the beautiful woman. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 228. Hua Pieyao, what nonsense are you talking about, old woman? Will I be unable to defeat a young boy like him? Duan Jingtao turned around and cursed at the beautiful woman. When Hua Pieyao heard Duan Jingtao scolding her as an old woman, her face changed and she instantly became gloomy. Duan Jingtao, you think my kick just now was too light, right? Do you still dare to talk nonsense here? If you don't want that tongue anymore, I can cut it off for you. No woman can tolerate others calling her old, and Hua Pieyao is obviously no exception. This elder of the Luahua sect has an unusually hot temper. As soon as he finished speaking, he wanted to take action, and his powerful true energy burst out, crushing Duan Jingtao. Judging from the depth of his true energy, he is obviously a master. Duan Jingtao chuckled, old woman, I was the one who let you go just now. Do you really think that I am afraid of you? You have to fight me to keep me company. If you lose, don't blame me for bullying women. Duan Jingtao raised his palms, and the true energy gathered in his palms, and the cold energy condensed. He was actually a master. At this time, Xiao Wuji had already remembered the intelligence information about Duan Jingtao. Duan Jingtao, a man from Jianghu, used his ice wave to he is famous all over the world. This person is not a bad person, but his mouth is very smelly and poisonous. He speaks without restraint and does not care about the feelings of others. Often trouble comes from his mouth, because he says the wrong thing and makes grudges with others. In general, generally speaking, except for his venomous mouth, Duan Jingtao is quite a good person, and he even has a somewhat chivalrous reputation in the world. Don't do it, don't do it, don't use force, it will hurt the peace. The steward of the Du mansion saw Duan Jingtao and Hua Pieyao at war with each other and quickly went to break up the fight. In addition to these two people, Xiao Wuji also saw several other warriors in the lobby. There was a monk sitting on the chair on the left, holding a Buddhist bead in one hand. Holding a Zen staff in the other hand, closing his eyes and meditating. The quarrel between Duan Jingtao and Hua Pieyao was very loud, but they couldn't disturb him at all. I think this person is the Buddhist monk Zhenhui from the two Zen temples mentioned by the housekeeper Du Mingxian. Judging from his Yuan Ting Yuji appearance, he must be a master. Opposite the great monk, there is a middle-aged man sitting. The man is wearing a white Taoist robe, looks thin, and holds a sword in his hand. The sword is not unsheathed, and the sword is not unsheathed. The decoration of the scabbard is very gorgeous. Not only is the scabbard inlaid with 7 cat-eye-sized gems, but there is also a piece of white jade hanging on the sword tassel. How should I put it? The first time Xiao Wuji saw this sword, a thought appeared in his mind. As the idiom goes, gold and jade are on the outside, but on the other hand, they are ruined. Swords are used to kill people, so why should they be decorated so gorgeously? The scabbard is just fine, inlaid with precious stones will not hinder the fight. But hanging white jade on the sword tassel will hinder the fight. Let's fight. The sword tassel swings back and forth, and the weight of the white jade will also destroy the balance. You need to know that when masters fight, the slightest difference can be the difference between life and death. Sometimes a small flaw is enough to separate the winner from the lose, life and death. Is this person a disciple of Wuxia Mountain? The disciples of Wuxia Mountain shouldn't be so ostentatious, right? Looking at the Taoist robe he is wearing, there is no doubt that he must be Feng Qingyang from Wuxia Mountain. Feng Qingyang, this name reminds Xiao Wuji of Feng Qingyang in Swordsman. I don't know if this man's sword has Feng Qingyang. Yang is so sharp. Noticing Xiao Wuji looking at him, Feng Qingyang also looked over and nodded slightly. Xiao Wuji also nodded, and finally looked at the third person. It was a middle-aged man with an unshaven beard who was leaning on a chair. A young man. The big man has a burly build and thick arms, as thick as an adult's thigh. He is wearing a shabby linen clothes. The linen clothes have been washed white and have several damages. When Duan Jingtao and Hua Peiyao were arguing, he was looking after himself. He wiped his sword freely without raising his head. The big man only had his sword in his eyes. It was a very sharp knife, with a shiny blade, like a bright mirror, exuding waves of chill. These three people, together with Duan Jingtao and Hua Peiyao. There are only 5 people in the lobby, but none of these 5 people are simple. These 5 people are all masters, and all of them are famous figures outside. Suddenly, the big man he suddenly raised his head and looked at Xiao Wuji, his eyes as sharp as an eagle. To be precise, what the big man was looking at was not Xiao Wuji, but the snow-drinking sword on Xiao Wuji's waist. What a knife! The middle-aged man's eyes shone and he spoke. Xiao Wuji said calmly, "Of course it is a good knife." The middle-aged man said, "Just looking at the scabbard is not enough. I wonder if my little brother would like to take a look at it." Xiao Wuji said, "My sword will see blood when it is taken out of its sheath. You'd better not look at it." The middle-aged man laughed loudly. "Since you said that, I want to see it even more. It's rare to see such a good knife. Wouldn't it be a pity in life if I couldn't see it with my own eyes? Little brother, draw your sword." The middle-aged man put up a posture. Judging from his appearance, he not only wanted to see Xiao Wuji's sword, but also wanted to fight with Xiao Wuji. At this moment, a Buddha's call came. Amitabha, the donor of the sword, should not act rashly. It was the eminent monk Zhenhui of Liangchan Temple who spoke. He opened his eyes, looked at the middle-aged man and said, "Sword donor, this donor's sword is not visible to everyone. Donors of swords should not seek death." The middle-aged man's pupils shrank and he said solemnly, "Zhenhui, what do you mean? Does it mean that I am not this person's opponent?" Amitabha. Zhenhui shook her head, chanted the Buddha's name softly, and kept silent. Although she didn't answer, the meaning was already obvious. The middle-aged man was no match for Xiao Wuji. Duan Jingtao and Hua Peiyao were both a little shocked. Seeing the violence, they know Zhenhui's vision, and monks don't tell lies. Since Zhenhui says so, there is certainly a reason for it. Apart from Zhenhui in the lobby, only Wuxian Feng Qingyang was not surprised. Because he had also recognized Xiao Wuji's identity. "Little brother, who are you? Tell me your name." The middle-aged man said. Du Mingxian, the steward of the Du mansion, stepped forward and said, Sorry, I was negligent. I'm here to introduce you to you. This is Jinyi Wei Qinhu, Mr. Xiaowaji. Xiaowaji. The middle-aged man, Duan Jingtao, and Hua Peiyao all widened their eyes. The middle-aged man took 2 steps back and couldn't help but tighten the handle of the knife in his hand. Because of too much force, his knuckles turned white, and the back of his hand blue veins popped out. You are Xiaowaji. The middle-aged man's face was full of wariness and fear, and he no longer dared to let Xiaowaji draw, the sword. Everyone in the world knew Xiaowaji's strength. Only the strong master dared to take his sword. The strong master's face, there is only one word of death for his knife. If you are Xiaowaji, then this knife is the snow-drinking crazy knife. The middle-aged man stared at the saber on Xiaowaji's waist and said sincerely, it is indeed a psychic weapon. It is indeed a rare weapon in the world. Only you are qualified to use this knife. Xiaowaji had no expression on his face and said without sadness or joy, that's a great award. The middle-aged man said, I'm just telling the truth. I overestimated my abilities before. Please forgive me, Mr. Xiao. Xiaowaji said, it doesn't matter, I'm not that narrow-minded. Thank you. The middle-aged man bowed his fists to Xiaowaji, and then sat back on his chair. Xiaowaji also knew the name of the middle-aged man, Daoju. This is a very ordinary name, but Daoju is not an ordinary person. Daoju is ranked 13th on the Earth ranking, and is the second sword master behind Xiaowaji. Before Xiaowaji was born, Daoju was the strongest among the sword masters. In the lobby among them, there was another person who was so frightened that his hands and feet were cold and he was sweating profusely. He was Duan Jingtao. In terms of offending, Duan Jingtao was the person who offended Xiaowaji the most. Hey, Xiaoqianhu, I was so unbridled before, I hope Mr. Xiaoqianhu has a lot, so don't take it to heart. Duan Jingtao showed an ugly smile and said to Xiaowaji in a flattering manner. Xiaowaji smiled and said calmly, don't worry, I'm not a murderous demon who doesn't blink an eye. I won't hate you because of trivial things. At that time, Xiaoqianhu's reputation spread far and wide, and his reputation as a chivalrous man spread throughout the world, and the world admired him. My admiration for Xiaoqianhu is like a torrential river, endless. Xiaoqianhu, I. After that, Duan Jingtao said a lot of flattering words, which opened Xiaowu's eyes greatly. Who said Duan Jingtao has a vicious mouth? Isn't this a good point? Talk about people when you see them, talk about ghosts when you see ghosts. Duan Jingtao's tongue is very slippery. Humph, you are really thick-skinned. Hua Peiyao looked at Duan Jingtao's shameless look and couldn't help but give him a smack. Duan Jingtao's face froze, and he turned around and cursed, I'm talking to Xiaoqianhu, why do you, an old woman, get in the way? When men speak, women just stand aside and listen. Hua Peiyao became angry immediately, and her chest heaved violently, becoming even more turbulent, which made Shui Hua and Song Liman's eyes go straight. Du Mingxian, the housekeeper of the Du mansion, who was old and strong, was also dumbfounded. What are you looking at? You don't need your eyeballs anymore, right? Hua Peiyao shouted sharply, and Duan Jingtao quickly turned his head and snorted disdainfully, "Tch, there's no meat at all, what's so good about it?" Hua Peiyao gritted her teeth so hard that she was ready to kill Duan Jingtao. Duan Jingtao's mouth was indeed as poisonous as the rumors said, but he just didn't dare to show it in front of Xiaowaji. Ba, please calm down, both donors. At this time, Zhenhui from Liangchan Temple spoke, looked at Hua Peiyao and Duan Jingtao and said, both of you are here to eliminate demons, so we should work together. If they kill each other, only the murderer in the dark will be proud. Hearing this, Duan Jingtao crossed his arms and said, for the sake of Master Zhenhui, I am a manly man and will not care about you as a woman. Hua Peiyao glanced at Duan Jingtao and said coldly, if you keep talking nonsense, I will cut out your tongue. With Zhenhui as a guarantee, the two finally settled the dispute temporarily. Du Mingxian led Xiao Wuji to sit down on the upper left. Zhenhui and Feng Qingyang had no objections. When walking in the world, strength is respected. Xiao Wuji is a member of the Jinyi Guard Qinhu. He is also a powerful Grand Master, he is the strongest among them, and he is qualified to sit in the main seat. The fact that Xiao Wuji broke through to Grand Master has been announced by Tianji Pavilion and spread all over the world. Xiao Wuji has also been listed on the heavenly ranking 36th. There are 36 rankings in the heavenly ranking. The first 35 rankings are all based on strength. Only the 36th is different. The 36th ranking is specially given by Tianji Pavilion to the earthly ranking. The Grand Master keeps it. Whoever of the earth ranking Grand Masters breaks through to the Great Grand Master realm will automatically be on the list. If two earth ranking Grand Masters break through to the Grand Master realm at the same time, they will be ranked by force. Of course, if an old man defeats the 36th place can also be on the list, but when a new Grand Master on the earth ranking breaks through to the Great Grand Master, that person will automatically be removed from the list. In short, the 36th place on the heavenly ranking is somewhat special. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 229. Amitabha, Xiaoqian who must have come here to slay demons. Zhenhui looked at Xiao Wuji and asked. Xiao Wuji nodded and said yes, the devil has caused trouble in Jieyang Mansion and killed thousands of people. This matter has alarmed the court. I have been ordered to capture the devil, life or death. You all arrived before me and want to know the situation better. Who can tell me in detail about the situation of this devil? The information recorded in the files is limited after all. Xiao Wuji still needs to inquire in person. Let me answer Master Xiao's questions. Du Mingxian, the steward of the Du Mansion, said. That was a month ago. After that, Du Mingxian told the whole story about the devil's trouble in Jieyang Mansion from beginning to end, without skipping any detail. Starting from the bloody wedding in the Du Mansion, the demon killed thousands of warriors in the Jieyang Mansion, causing the Jieyang Mansion to be in turmoil and all the trees and grass were surrounded by soldiers. In addition to the Du family, the Luo family, Fihe sect, Luohua sect, and Xingan sect of Jieyang Mansion all suffered heavy casualties. Liangchan Temple and Shixiashan each lost a strong master. Zhenhui and Feng Qingyang came later. Both of them are Dibang Grand Masters, second only to Jinyan and Gui Wuju in Liangchan Temple and Shixia Mountain. Today's Jieyang Mansion can be described as a mess. In addition to the Du family where a large number of warriors stayed, the Luo family also had a large number of warriors staying temporarily. In addition, all the inns in Jieyang Mansion are full of warriors. These warriors can be roughly divided into three types. The first is the many relatives and friends of the slain warriors, who are here to take revenge. The second type is the warrior who wants to become famous in the world by killing demons. The devil brought trouble to Jieyang Mansion. If he can be killed, he will become famous all over the world overnight. The third type is the bounty hunter who targets the demon bounty. This amount of money is enough to drive countless bounty hunters crazy. Even if they know that Jieyang Mansion is now a dragon's pond and a tiger's den, they still dare to try it. Walking around the world, all you want is fame and fortune. Except for revenge warriors, one of the latter two is for fame and the other is for profit. After Xiao Wuji understood the ins and outs of the matter, he looked at Zhenhui and Feng Qingyang and asked, aren't there any great masters coming from Liangchan Temple and Shixia Mountain? The demon that appeared this time is very powerful. According to my opinion, he is probably a real Grand Master. It's not that I underestimate you two, but with your strength, you may not be the opponent of the devil. Amitabha, Xiaoqian who said. Zhenhui did not get angry, and softly recited the Buddha's name and said, "Uncle Jingming from my temple has arrived at Jieyang Mansion. He is currently inspecting the crime scene at Luo Mansion, and at the same time, he is being saved by the King Feng." Qingyang answered, "My uncle Yun Qiankai has also arrived at Jieyang Mansion, but he didn't show up." Xiao Wuji nodded slightly. Monk Jingming of Liangchan Temple is an eminent monk of the Jing generation. The seniority ranking of the two Zen temples is, Daoqing is the same as Suanzu, pure and true as the sea. Now the abbot of Liangchan Temple, Qin Gran, is of the Qing generation. Jingming is only one generation below Qin Gran and still above the Zhen generation. He and Shixiashan Yun Qiankai are both great masters and powerful men who are famous all over the world. Xiao Wuji has also heard of their names. Liangchan Temple and Shixiashan are really serious this time, and they have sent out strong masters in their sects. The strength of these two people can be compared with Yuan Xiong. Everyone talked suddenly. Two people walked in from outside the lobby. The one on the left was a great monk, with a bald head, not a single hair, and 9 ring scars. But his beard was extremely long, pure white in color, and dragged directly to the chest. On the right is a middle-aged man, dressed in mourning clothes, with a look of sadness still on his face. Seeing these two people, Zhenhui and the housekeeper Du Mingxian immediately greeted them. Zhenhui lightly recited the Buddha's name and shouted, "Disciple Zhenhui Hui, I have met Master Jingming." Butler Du Mingxian said, "Hello, third young master." Obviously, the great monk is Jingming of Liangchan Temple, the great master. And the middle-aged man is Du Ping, the third young master of the Du family. Jingming and Du Ping walked into the lobby, and both of them cast their eyes on Xiao Wuji. Jingming put his hands together and performed a Buddhist salute, "Amitabha, poor monk Jingming, I have met the donor Xiao." Xiao Wuji stood up and returned the greeting, "Master Jingming is polite." The relationship between the Zhou dynasty and Buddhism is good. In addition, Buddhism in this world does not have so many sects and monks are mostly compassionate and good people, so Xiao Wuji has a pretty good sense of Buddhism. At this time, Du Ping also walked up, taking a step forward. He bowed and said, "Xiaoqian, who is polite. I, Du Ping, have missed you from afar. I hope Xiaoqian who will forgive me." Xiao Wuji said, "Master Du, please wake up, but I came here rashly and disturbed you." Du Ping said, "Master Xiao can come to slay the demon. I'm very grateful. How dare you say it's disturbing? It's getting late today, so please let Mr. Xiao stay in the mansion. I have ordered people to prepare the guest rooms, wine, and food." Xiao Wuji nodded, that's exactly what he meant. And according to Du Mingxian, the housekeeper of the Du mansion, the devil has not appeared for 2 days and 2 nights, and tonight is the 3rd night. According to the devil's behavior, tonight will be very difficult. They may show up. There are vigilance, worry, indifference, hatred, and so on. Xiao Wuji and his party were assigned to different rooms. Xiao Wuji was in one room, and Shuihua and Song Liman were in Xiao Wuji's room. Next door, Jingming and Zhenhui share a room. Feng Qingyang and Duan Jingtao share a room. As for Hua Peiyao, she lives in a room with her female disciples. In various guest rooms in the Du mansion, there are also Luohua sect, disciples of Fihi sect, Xingan sect, and other sects. Although there are many people, they do not have much sense of security. These people have long been afraid of the murderous devil in the dark. They are timid before fighting. Once they encounter the murderous devil, they will, "I'm afraid I won't be able to exert even 50% of my strength." In the room, Xiao Wuji drank alone and ate food. The Du Fu family has a great business. The wine prepared is aged junzizi that has been stored in the cellar for 30 years, and the dishes used to accompany the wine are also of the highest quality. Xiao Wuji just ate and drank quietly, waiting for the devil to come. Xiao Wuji had a hunch that he would gain something tonight. The time came to midnight, and the bright moon was in the center. It was a waning crescent moon, shaped like a sickle with a sharp edge, like a murder weapon hanging high in the sky, as if it would fall down at any time and take someone's head. Goo goo. Goo goo. Goo goo. Several hoarse cries of nightingales and crows sounded, breaking the silence of the night and adding a hint of terror to the dark night. Midnight and early morning are when a person is most sleepy. Each guest room was brightly lit, but the person actually keeping watch was already dozing off. Outside the guest room of the Fihi sect disciples. Rustle. 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 There was a slight noise, like the sound of a poisonous snake crawling across the grass. But the sound was so soft that it was almost inaudible, so the Fihi sect disciples in the room didn't notice it at all. Call. A bloody shadow flashed past and broke into the house through the window. The window opened and closed without making any sound. There were 4 Fihi sect disciples in the room, 2 of them were sitting on the bed with their knees beside them, one was leaning on a pillar, and the other was sitting on a chair with his hands on his temples. 0 request for flowers. The moment the blood-colored shadow entered the room, the disciple of the Fihi sect who was leaning on the pillar seemed to feel something and opened his eyes instantly. However, he only saw a flash of blood, and a faint scent of blood coming towards his face. Then his vision went dark and he completely lost consciousness. At the same time, 3 other Fihi sect disciples were killed at the same moment and died in their sleep. Although he died, at least he was unconscious and without any pain. After killing the person, the blood shadow broke out of the window and came to the next room. Puff. A splash of blood stained the windows, tables, and chairs red. 2 Zingan sect disciples were killed. The murderous devil reappeared and started killing people like crazy. 20 or 30 people died in a row. Because they were all ordinary disciples, no one noticed the arrival of the murderous devil. Finally, after killing 20 or 30 people, the murderous devil set his sights on Duan Jingtao. And Duan Jingtao is a strong master, so he was not instantly killed by him. Devil, you are finally here. Duan Jingtao, who was in the room, had already discovered his presence when the blood shadow broke through the window, and immediately let out a roar. This roar contained deep internal power, and spread out loudly, spreading throughout every room in the Du mansion. A corner. Xiao Wuji and Monk Jingming were the first to discover it. The moment the roar rang out, Xiao Wuji broke out of the door and flew to the roof. He tapped his feet and rushed towards Duan Jingtao's room. Monk Ming's movements were not slow, and his room was closer to Duan Jingtao, so he was one step faster than Xiao Wuji. While Duan Jingtao roared, he had already improved his luck and his combat power. He shot out with one palm, exploding the extreme cold palm power, he flew towards the blood shadow. As soon as the wind from the palm came out, the temperature in the room dropped sharply, and a large amount of frost condensed. The Ice Wave Palm is a 7th grade magical skill. The palm power is not only overbearing, but also sinister and hard to guard against. Duan Jingtao, knowing the strength of the murderous demon, he did not hold back at all. From the beginning, his power exploded. With a loud bang, the ice palm hit the blood shadow, freezing the blood shadow instantly. But Duan Jingtao, before he could be happy, the ice suddenly shattered. The blood shadow slapped Duan Jingtao's chest with his backhand. Only a click was heard. Duan Jingtao's sternum was broken and all his internal organs were damaged. Duan Jingtao spurted out with a mouthful of blood, the whole person flew out like a broken sack, smashed the door of the room, and fell heavily outside the house. Cough cough cough. After landing, Duan Jingtao spat out a few more mouthfuls of blood, and his breath was instantly weakened to the extreme. Just one breath with one move, Duan Jingtao was seriously injured and was no longer able to fight. Huh! The wind roared, and the blood shadow struck again, and slapped Duan Jingtao's Tianling cap with a palm. The palm was powerful, like a dragnet, covering Duan Jingtao, he had nowhere to escape. Duan Jingtao was seriously injured and was unable to resist or escape. He could only close his eyes and wait for death. At the critical moment, a compassionate chant sounded. Amitabha. The moment the Buddha's trumpet sounded, a golden bell of true essence fell from the sky and covered Duan Jingtao. Shuiying slapped the golden bell with his palm, making a loud bang. Shuiying's palm force was very domineering, but he could not shake the golden bell. Not even the slightest bit, but he was knocked back. This is the Buddhist golden bell shield. You can practice it from the inside out at the 10th level. Seeing monk Jingming use the golden bell shield magical skill to save Duan Jingtao, it is obvious that the golden bell shield realm is already at the 10th level. Above. The blood shadow never succeeded in succeeding, did not stay for a moment, and immediately turned around and fled. Amitabha. Monk Jingming landed on the roof, clasped his hands, and chanted the Buddha's name. He did not chase, because he knew that there was another person in the direction of the blood shadow's escape. Martial arts, become invincible starting from the full-level magic system. Author, Drunk in March at West Lake. Chapter 230. He was a murderer, and his attacks were much more ruthless than that of a monk like him. Whoosh! 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 Hua Pieyao, Zhenhui, Daoju, Feng Qingyang, and others who heard the noise rushed over and saw the fleeing blood shadow. They were about to catch up, but suddenly the hairs on their hair stood on end, their scalps went numb, and an infinite fear surged in their hearts, and they suddenly stopped in unison. Murderous look. No, it's sword energy. The terrible sword energy made me unable to resist at all. Daoju was secretly shocked. He subconsciously released his sword energy to fight against that sword energy, but it collapsed at the first touch. The gap between the two was too big. Kang! A sword cry resounded through the night sky, and then a sword light suddenly lit up. The sword suddenly lit up. The light tore through the night and cut through the sky, leaving traces in the eyes and hearts of the heroes. Xiao Wuji flew up, his whole body like the sharpest sword, and instantly passed by the blood shadow. Poof! Blood splashed, two bloody severed arms flew up into the air, followed by a shrill scream. Ah! Shuiying roared crazily, heartbreaking, and moved those who heard it. In just one encounter, Shuiying had his arms cut off. However, Xiao Wuji's offensive did not stop. With a flash of lightning, Xiao Wuji had already arrived behind Shuiying. Slapped him on the back of the heart with a palm. The overbearing palm force broke through the body, directly destroying the internal organs, and finally reached the Dan 207 field, instantly destroying Shuiying's stanchion and turning him into a useless person. At the same time, a body came to Shuiying, and with a click, he removed Shuiying's chin. Xiao Wuji turned over and landed on the roof, standing with his hands behind his back. The clouds were light and the wind was light, showing his master's demeanor and intoxicating demeanor. The battle could only last for one day. In an instant, it was over as soon as it started. Hiss! So strong! Too strong! This is Xiao Wuji. It certainly lives up to its reputation. Hua Pieyao, Daoju, Feng Qingyang, Zhenhui and other masters all took a breath of air. Especially Daoju, who once wanted to challenge Xiao Wuji, was frightened at this moment. He was very lucky that Xiao Wuji did not draw his sword during the day, otherwise they will definitely die. They have long heard how powerful Xiao Wuji is. After seeing it with their own eyes today, they know that Xiao Wuji is more powerful than they imagined. The devil can seriously hurt Duan Jingtao with one palm, which shows that at least he is a master in the later stage of the Grand Master. But Xiao Wuji didn't even draw the sword, he just used his palm as a knife to cut off the devil's arms in an instant, and at the same time destroyed his Danshan, turning him into a cripple. In front of Xiao Wuji, the master of the Grand Master seemed too weak as an ant. Did Xiao Wuji really just break through to the Grand Master realm?
Why do I feel that he is more powerful than Master Jingming? Monk Zhenhui thought secretly in his heart. Daoju, Feng Qingyang, and others were also secretly shocked. They are not ordinary people, and they have all had more or less contact with the Grand Master. Although Xiao Wuji showed little strength in just a moment, but it was enough for them to see the reality. Xiao Wuji's strength obviously did not seem to have just broken through to the early stage of the Grand Master. The Grand Master was not so strong in the early stage. Xiao Wuji didn't know what a few people were thinking, so he jumped from the roof and came to in front of everyone. Monk Jingming came behind Duan Jingtao and raised his palm to inject a burst of true energy to help Duan Jingtao heal his injuries. The Buddhist internal energy is extremely yang and strong, without losing the balance and peace, and has a miraculous effect on healing. With the help of Monk Jingming, Duan Jingtao's face quickly became rosy, and the injuries in his body were temporarily stabilized. Thank you Master Jingming for your life-saving grace. I will keep this kindness and affection in my heart. Duan Jingtao adjusted his breath for a week, then slowly stood up, put his hands together in front of Monk Jingming, and performed a respectful Buddhist salute. Amitabha, God has the virtue of good life. Donor Duan came here to slay the demon, so the poor monk would naturally not ignore him. Monk Jingming replied with a slight smile. After the healing was completed, everyone focused on the devil who was captured alive. They all knew that Xiao Wuji had been merciless just now. If it were not for the purpose of catching him alive, with Xiao Wuji's strength, this devil has long been dead. Devil, let us see your true face. The devil's whole body was shrouded in a blood-colored robe, and his true appearance could not be seen clearly. Feng Qingyang stepped forward and used the scabbard to lift off the blood-colored robe on the devil's body, revealing an old face. His beard and hair were all white, and he had long eyebrows. Snow, with lowered eyes, a hooked nose, and an eagle-like beak, has an extremely fierce appearance. Who is this person? Feng Qingyang, Daoju, Hua Peiyao, and others looked at each other and didn't recognize this person's identity. Logically speaking, they would have heard about such a powerful person. But now they don't know anyone. The white eyebrows are broken without a boat. At this moment, Xiao Wuji and Monk Jingming said a name in unison. White eyebrows are broken without a boat. Does this name sound familiar? Feng Qingyang, Daoju, Hua Peiyao, and others frowned slightly. They all seemed to have heard of this name and it felt very familiar, but they just couldn't remember it. Uncle Master, who is this Duan was who? Zhenhui looked at Monk Jingming and asked. Amitabha, this thief was captured by Donor Xiao. Please ask Donor Xiao to clear up your doubts. Jingming looked at Xiao Wuji and said. Xiao Wuji nodded, and then told the origins of Beimei Duan was who one by one. Beimei Duan was who, his break was a two-part break, not Duan Jingtao's. Duan was who is the great elder of the Fuyuan section. He was already a master more than 30 years ago and is deeply respected by his colleagues in the world. Because he was born with white hair and white eyebrows, he got the name White Eyebrows. However, 18 years ago, Duan was who suddenly disappeared. From then on, no one was seen alive or dead. The Fuyuan sect sent out many disciples to search for it. They searched for 3 years, but there was still no news. Everyone in the Fuyuan sect thought Duan was who had died long ago, but they didn't expect him to appear here. Xiao Wuji looked at Duan was who, frowning slightly, suspicious in his heart. Duan was who has been missing for 18 years, and there has been no news for 18 years. When he came out, he changed from a righteous hero to a murderer. This change is too great. Older. 18 years have passed, and people like Feng Qingyang, Daoju, and Hua Peiyao have no memory of Duan was who. Xiao Wuji only remembered it because he had read the Jinyue files and had a photographic memory. Seeing the iconic white eyebrows, they recognized Duan was who at a glance. After Xiaowaji's explanation, Feng Qingyang, Daoju, and others finally remembered the origin of Duan was who. This isn't right. Monk Zhenhui frowned and said. Duan was who is the great elder of Fuyuan section. He has always taken it as his duty to hoe the strong and help the weak. He has done many chivalrous and righteous things in his life. Why did he become a murderer? Hua Pieyao nodded and said, yes, Duan was who is a generous man and a righteous hero. I still remember that Duan was who had some connections with my previous leader of the Luohua section. How could he kill my disciple of the Luohua sect for no reason? This doesn't make sense. Duan Jingtao also said, I have never heard of any deep hatred between Duan was who and the Du family of Jieyang Mansion. Everyone turned their attention to Du Ping, the third young master of the Du family. Du Ping looked confused, shook his head and said, I have never heard my father mention Duan was who, and the matter of enmity is even more nonsense. So why is Duan was who so cruel? Killed so many people in Jieyang Mansion. Everyone is puzzled. There must be a reason for killing. There is no hatred without reason in the world. It cannot be said that Duan was who lived in seclusion for 18 years. After returning to the world, he wanted to kill a few people for fun, so he concocted it in Jieyang Mansion. Did you solve this murder case? Just ask him. Daoju looked indifferent and took a step forward. Just when he was about to ask, Duan was who suddenly let out a scream. He saw Duan was whose expression was ferocious, his face was distorted, and blue veins popped up on his forehead and neck, and he screamed heartbreakingly. His lungs seemed to be suffering unparalleled pain. His arms were broken and his dantian was destroyed. At this moment, he was unable to stand up. He could only lie on the ground, twitching and rolling on the ground. The heart-rending screams made everyone feel terrified. Cold. What's going on here? Everyone looked at Xiaowaji, thinking that Xiaowaji had done something secret when he injured Duan was who. After all, in addition to being famous for his sword skills, palm skills, and light kung fu, Xiaowaji's interrogation method, the life and death talisman, has also been famous all over the world. According to legend, people who have been hit by the life and death talisman will experience unparalleled pain, even more terrifying than the Lingqi torture. The appearance of being unable to survive or die is very similar to the current Duan was who. Facing the scrutiny of everyone, Xiaowaji said expressionlessly, I didn't place the life and death talisman, so his behavior has nothing to do with me. There is no need for Xiaowaji to lie here, and he doesn't bother to lie, so everyone believed it. Moreover, Duan was whose pain only lasted for a short time and then stopped. Everyone saw countless blood vessels appearing on Duan was whose face. It seemed like there were insects crawling underneath. Then Duan was whose eyes turned scarlet red, and then his 7 orifices bleed, and finally he died. Seeing the miserable death of Duan was who, everyone took a breath of air and involuntarily took a few steps back. They only felt their scalp numb and goosebumps all over their bodies. Because Duan was whose death was so miserable, let alone see it. Yeah, they've never heard of it. Duan was who must have been poisoned. Master Jingming, you are experienced and well informed. What do you think? When Xiaowaji was idle and bored, he almost read all the files in 3.8 of the Jinyue Archives room. It recorded countless poisons in the rivers and lakes and the characteristics of the poisons. Xiaowaji compared it with Duan was whose death. But he found that there was no case that matched it. Monk Jingming thought for a moment and shook his head, but even this poor monk has never seen such poisonous. This poison caused the deceased to endure extremely cruel torture. It was so vicious. At this moment, Monk Jingming's brows were raised and his eyes were rounded, showing the look of an angry King Kong. Obviously, he, a Buddhist monk, was also angry. Monk Jingming took a step forward, with King Kong's angry eyes showing a trace of compassion. Then he sat cross-legged next to Duan was whose body, clasped his hands, closed his eyes tightly,
and silently recited the mantra of death. Although Duan was who killed many people, he was already dead at this moment. Death is like a lamp extinguished, and the dust is gone. Return to dust, return to earth. Monk Jingming is still willing to save him, hoping that he can go to the Western paradise after death. Du Ping came up and said no matter what the reason for Duan was whose murder is, at least the devil has been eliminated. Xiaoqian who avenged my Du family, Du Ping is grateful. This kindness and affection will never be forgotten by the Du family. If there is a mission in the future, the Du family will be crushed to pieces without hesitation. After Du Ping finished speaking, he bowed down to Xiao Wuji and gave a big salute.